Deep beneath the golden sands of Egypt, where pharaohs once walked as living gods and pyramids pierced the ancient sky, lie secrets that continue to astound the modern world. This is a civilization that mastered medicine when others still believed in magic, built monuments that defy explanation, and created mysteries that archaeologists are only now beginning to unravel. From golden tongues that speak to the dead to hidden chambers in the world's most famous pyramid, ancient Egypt refuses to give up its secrets easily. 1. The Golden Tongue Discovery. Picture this. Archaeologists working under the blazing Egyptian sun suddenly freeze in amazement. Their brushes have just revealed something that glints like captured starlight in the sand. Not one, not two, but 29 golden tongues scattered among ancient mummies. Each tongue was crafted from precious gold foil and shaped with meticulous care to resemble the human organ of speech. But these weren't decorative pieces for the living. They were passports to eternity itself. Ancient Egyptians believed that death was merely a doorway, and in the afterlife, the deceased would need to speak before Osiris, the mighty judge of the dead. Without a tongue, they would be rendered forever mute in the celestial court, unable to defend their earthly actions or plead their case for eternal life. This remarkable discovery represents one of the largest collections of golden tongues ever found at a single site, each one a testament to humanity's oldest dream, to speak beyond the grave. 2. Ancient cancer surgeons. 4.5 millennia ago, when the Great Pyramid was still rising stone by stone toward the heavens, an ancient Egyptian physician faced a patient whose life hung in the balance. The doctor stared at a growing mass on the patient's skull, what we now know was cancer. But instead of accepting defeat, this brave healer picked up bronze instruments and attempted the impossible. Recent archaeological evidence reveals the unmistakable marks of metal surgical tools around tumor sites on a 4,500-year-old skull. Someone had tried to carve away death itself, scraping and cutting at the malignant growth with primitive but effective instruments. The surgery was ultimately unsuccessful, but it represents humanity's earliest known battle against cancer. This ancient physician, armed with bronze tools and unwavering determination, had attempted to perform what modern oncologists do today. The skull tells a story of medical courage that predates our understanding of cancer by thousands of years, proving that the fight against this disease is as old as civilization itself. 3. The Blood Red Ritual. Hidden within the depths of an ancient Egyptian storage room, archaeologists uncovered evidence of a ceremony so mysterious it could have emerged from a supernatural thriller. Inside a 2,200-year-old vase decorated with the image of Bes, the protective dwarf god, lay the dried remains of a blood-colored concoction. But this wasn't blood at all. Chemical analysis revealed a carefully crafted hallucinogenic mixture designed to transport participants into otherworldly visions. The ritual likely reenacted a mythical story where Bes tricks the bloodthirsty goddess Hathor by offering her an alcoholic beverage spiked with plant-based drugs, disguised as blood. As the goddess drinks the mystical brew, she falls into a deep sleep of forgetfulness, her rage dissolving into peaceful dreams. Participants in this ancient ceremony would have consumed similar hallucinogenic cocktails, believing they were communing directly with the gods or experiencing divine visions that would guide their spiritual journey through both life and death. 4. The Hidden Chamber Mystery. Deep within the heart of the Great Pyramid, cosmic rays from the far reaches of space revealed a secret that had remained hidden for 4,500 years. The revolutionary Scan Pyramids project used muon tomography, a technique that detects particles created when cosmic rays collide with Earth's atmosphere, to peer inside the ancient monument without disturbing a single stone. What they discovered left the archaeological world stunned. A sealed chamber measuring 9 meters long and 2 meters wide, suspended above the pyramid's main entrance. This mysterious void had never been entered by human eyes, and its purpose remains tantalizingly unknown. Some experts speculate it was engineered to redistribute the enormous weight of the pyramid stones, while others wonder if it might contain undiscovered treasures or religious artifacts. The chamber sits hauntingly close to known passages, yet remains completely inaccessible, like a time capsule from the Old Kingdom, waiting to reveal its ancient secrets to future generations of explorers. 5. The Golden Mummy. In January 2023, the archaeological world held its breath as researchers in the Saqqara necropolis made a discovery that would dominate headlines across the globe. Deep within a limestone sarcophagus lay the perfectly preserved remains of a man named Hekashepes, wrapped not in ordinary linen, but in sheets of gleaming gold. After 4,300 years in his underground tomb, this extraordinary mummy emerged as possibly the oldest and most complete ever discovered from ancient Egypt's early period. Gold was considered the flesh of the gods themselves, and wrapping a body in this precious metal was believed to grant divine protection in the afterlife. Hekashepes' golden shroud represented a fortune in ancient currency, suggesting he held a position of incredible importance in Egyptian society. The remarkable preservation offers scientists an unprecedented opportunity to extract DNA and analyze the health, diet, and lifestyle of ancient Egyptians with extraordinary detail, potentially unlocking secrets that have remained buried for over 4 millennia. 6. The Pharaoh's Lost Sword. In the crumbling ruins of a military barracks buried beneath desert sands, archaeologists uncovered a weapon that once belonged to one of history's most powerful rulers. The bronze sword bore the unmistakable cartouche of Ramesses II, the pharaoh who ruled Egypt for over 6 decades and left his mark across the ancient world. This wasn't some ceremonial decoration gathering dust in a royal treasury. The weapon was discovered in a small room near a strategic defensive position, its placement suggesting it was actually intended for real combat. The sword had likely been presented to a high-ranking military officer as a royal reward for exceptional service or bravery in battle. Imagine the pride and overwhelming responsibility that officer must have felt carrying a weapon personally blessed by the God King himself into the chaos of ancient warfare. In an era when pharaohs were considered divine beings, possessing such a blade would have been equivalent to carrying a piece of the gods themselves into battle, transforming its wielder into a living extension of royal power and divine authority. 7. The Cliff-Hidden Temple. Carved directly into a cliff face and concealed for over 2 millennia, a remarkable temple at Athribis remained completely hidden until modern archaeologists stumbled upon its mysterious entrance. Dating back 2,100 years, this sacred sanctuary served as both a religious center and an ancient astronomical observatory, where priest astronomers tracked the movements of celestial bodies. The temple walls were adorned with intricate reliefs showing King Ptolemy VIII making sacrificial offerings to Re-Pit, the fearsome lion-headed goddess, and her son Calanthes. But what made this discovery truly extraordinary were the astronomical symbols carved deep into the stone. 2 decans, ancient star maps that enabled people to tell time during the night hours, were depicted with humanoid bodies topped with animal heads. These celestial markers represented the Egyptian belief that the movements of stars and gods were intricately connected, creating a cosmic clock that guided agricultural activities, predicted floods, and determined the timing of religious festivals throughout the ancient world. 8. The Unknown Queen. During the centennial celebration of Howard Carter's legendary discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, archaeologists working in the same sacred valley made a find that added an entirely new chapter to Egyptian royal history. Hidden beneath centuries of accumulated sand and debris, they uncovered the burial chamber of Queen Neith, a ruler whose very existence had been completely unknown to modern scholars. The discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. How could an entire queen have been so thoroughly erased from historical memory? Her tomb, while not as lavishly appointed as the famous boy kings, contained precious artifacts and provided tantalizing clues about a previously unknown period of royal succession. Queen Neith appeared to have ruled during a time of political transition, possibly serving as a crucial bridge between more famous dynasties. Each artifact recovered from her burial chamber tells a story of power, politics, and royal intrigue from over 3 millennia ago, reminding us that even after centuries of exploration, ancient Egypt continues to surprise us with hidden chapters of its remarkable and mysterious history. 9. The Screaming Mummy. In 1886, when Gaston Maspero, head of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, carefully unwrapped a mummy designated only as man, he witnessed something that would haunt Egyptologists for generations to come. The ancient face was frozen in what appeared to be an eternal scream, mouth gaping wide in apparent agony, defying the peaceful expressions typically found on mummified remains. Even more disturbing were the clear signs of restraint. The man's hands and feet had been bound with rope before death, and his entire body was wrapped in sheepskin rather than the traditional linen bandages. The evidence pointed to a horrifying possibility. This person may have been buried alive or slowly poisoned, dying in excruciating pain. The unusual preservation method and obvious restraints indicated this wasn't a normal burial, but likely represented some form of punishment or execution. Some scholars theorize that he was a member of the royal family who committed treason or violated sacred laws, resulting in this terrible fate that left him screaming through eternity as a warning to others who might defy divine authority. 10. Brain surgery through the nose. The ancient Egyptian embalming process included a procedure so bizarre and disturbing that it sounds like something from a medieval horror story. Yet it was performed with surgical precision thousands of times throughout Egyptian history. During mummification, embalmers faced a significant challenge: how to remove the brain without damaging the skull or destroying the deceased's facial features for the afterlife. Their solution was both ingenious and macabre. Using a long metal rod equipped with a sharp hook, they would carefully insert the instrument through the nostril, puncturing the thin ethmoid bone that separates the nasal cavity from the brain. Once inside the skull, they would systematically liquefy the brain tissue, turning it into fluid that could be drained out through the nose. This delicate procedure required extraordinary anatomical knowledge and steady hands, as embalmers had to navigate fragile bone structures and soft tissues without damaging the exterior appearance. The success of this technique demonstrates the sophisticated medical understanding possessed by ancient Egyptian mortuary specialists, who performed complex procedures with primitive tools yet achieved results that preserved bodies for millennia. 11. The Sacred 70 Days. When death claimed an ancient Egyptian, their journey to the afterlife began with a precisely timed sacred ritual that could not be rushed, shortened, or altered in any way. The mummification process took exactly 70 days, not 69, not 71, but precisely 70 days with deep religious significance tied to the mythology of Osiris and the cosmic cycles of the Nile. This wasn't an arbitrary timeline, but corresponded to the period when the star Sirius disappeared from the night sky before its heliacal rising, which coincided perfectly with the annual Nile flood. During these 70 transformative days, the deceased underwent a complete metamorphosis from mortal remains to divine vessel prepared for eternal life. The first 40 days were spent in natron salt, slowly drying and preserving every tissue, while the remaining 30 days involved careful wrapping, blessing, and ritual preparation for the afterlife journey. Each day required specific ceremonies, protective spells, and monitoring by priests who ensured the process proceeded according to ancient sacred protocols that had been perfected over thousands of years of practice and religious refinement. 12. Divine Salt of Preservation. Hidden in the desert northwest of Cairo lies a natural wonder that made Egyptian mummification possible: the Wadi Natron, source of the miraculous substance called natron that ancient Egyptians revered as netri, or divine salt. This wasn't ordinary salt, but a supernatural mixture of sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, sodium sulfate, and sodium chloride that possessed almost magical preservative properties. When ancient embalmers packed a deceased body in natron, they were performing what seemed like alchemy, transforming decaying flesh into preserved, leather-like material that could survive for millennia. The salt drew out all moisture from tissues while simultaneously preventing decomposition, creating a chemical environment hostile to bacteria and decay. Workers would travel for days across dangerous desert terrain to collect these precious crystals from dried lake beds, carrying back tons of this supernatural preservative that meant the difference between eternal life and oblivion. The ancient Egyptians believed natron was a direct gift from the gods, essential for ensuring physical resurrection in the afterlife, making it one of the most valuable substances in their civilization. 13. The Sacred Animal Cemetery. Beneath the sands of Egypt lies one of the world's most extraordinary and touching cemeteries, a vast necropolis dedicated not to human royalty, but to millions of sacred animals who were mummified and buried with the same reverence shown to pharaohs and nobles. Sacred bulls, each considered the living embodiment of the god Ptah, were entombed in massive stone sarcophagi that rivaled royal burial chambers in their magnificence. Baboons, associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom, were carefully wrapped in linen and buried with their own miniature grave goods and protective amulets. Crocodiles, feared and revered as manifestations of the mighty god Sobuk, were discovered mummified in their hundreds, some reaching lengths of over 15 feet. But cats were the most numerous sacred residents of these animal necropolises, with temple complexes housing thousands of feline mummies, each lovingly prepared for an eternal afterlife, serving the goddess Badet. These weren't merely beloved pets, but religious intermediaries between the human and divine realms. Their preserved forms serving as eternal messengers, carrying prayers and offerings directly to the gods themselves. 14. The first mummy's origin. Long before any human was ever wrapped in linen bandages and preserved for eternity, the gods themselves established the divine template for mummification through a story of love, murder, and resurrection that would define Egyptian beliefs for thousands of years. According to ancient mythology, Osiris, the green-skinned god of the underworld, became the very first mummy through tragic and violent circumstances. The story begins with jealousy and fratricide when Osiris's brother Set, consumed with envy over his siblings' popularity and power, committed the ultimate betrayal by murdering the beloved god and scattering his dismembered body across the length of Egypt. But Isis, Osiris's devoted wife, refused to accept his death as final. She embarked on a desperate and determined quest, searching every corner of the Nile Valley to recover each piece of her husband's mutilated corpse. With the divine assistance of Anubis, the jackal-headed god, and her sister Nephthys, Isis pioneered the sacred art of mummification, carefully reassembling Osiris's body and wrapping it in linen bandages, creating the first mummy and establishing the divine precedent that every subsequent human mummification would follow. 15. Workshops of Eternity. Hidden beneath the ancient sands of Saqqara, archaeologists discovered what can only be described as sophisticated laboratories of immortality. Embalming workshops dating back 2,400 years where master embalmers practiced their sacred art with scientific precision. These weren't crude desert facilities, but well-equipped medical centers that would have impressed even modern forensic specialists. Each workshop contained stone beds perfectly sized for human bodies, complete with drainage channels carved into the surface to carry away bodily fluids during the preservation process. Clay pots of various sizes held precious oils, resins, and the life-giving natron salt required for successful mummification. Bronze and iron instruments lay carefully arranged like a surgeon's toolkit. Hooks for brain removal, knives for incision, probes for organ extraction, and specialized tools whose purposes remain mysterious even today. The workshops operated like ancient assembly lines of immortality, with different stations dedicated to each crucial stage: evisceration, drying, wrapping, and the final blessing rituals that transformed mortal remains into vessels prepared for eternal life in the company of the gods. 16. Democracy and Death. Ancient Egyptian society maintained rigid hierarchical structures during life. But death revealed a surprising and touching equality in the most basic human need. Everyone, regardless of wealth or social status, received some form of respectful burial preparation. However, the afterlife was decidedly not democratic, as elaborate mummification remained an expensive privilege of the wealthy elite. The vast majority of Egyptians experienced a simpler but still dignified treatment. Their bodies were wrapped in basic linen or woven reed matting and buried in shallow graves carved into the desert sand. Remarkably, this humble method often achieved excellent preservation due to Egypt's naturally arid climate. The hot, dry sand acted as a natural desiccant, creating sand mummies that could survive for thousands of years without artificial intervention. These modest burials reveal deeply human details. Families would carefully place simple pottery vessels filled with food and water beside their loved ones, along with personal possessions like jewelry, tools, or children's toys, ensuring that even the poorest Egyptians could carry something precious into the afterlife. 17. The Guardians of Organs. Within the sacred chambers of ancient Egyptian tombs stood four of the most important supernatural protectors in the afterlife. The canopic jars that housed the preserved organs of the deceased, each topped with the distinctive head of one of Horus's divine sons. These weren't mere storage containers, but sacred vessels that guaranteed the deceased would possess functioning organs in the celestial realm. Imsidi, depicted with a human head, watched over the liver with paternal care. Duamutef, the jackal-headed guardian, protected the stomach from harm or decay. Happy, bearing a baboon's wise head, safeguarded the lungs and the breath of life itself. Kabasanuf, crowned with a falcon's head, stood sentinel over the intestines and digestive processes. The heart, considered the seat of intelligence, emotion, and moral character, remained within the body for the crucial judgment ceremony, but these four essential organs received individual attention, careful preservation, and divine protection to ensure that when the deceased awakened in the afterlife, their physical form would be complete, functional, and ready for eternal service to the gods. 18. Roman Golden Eyes. When the mighty Roman Empire conquered Egypt in 30 BCE, they brought revolutionary burial customs that created some of the most visually striking and mysterious mummies ever discovered by archaeologists. Roman Egyptian mummies often featured gleaming golden armlets placed directly over the closed eyes and mouth, creating an otherworldly appearance that blended Egyptian preservation techniques with Roman aesthetic sensibilities and beliefs about the afterlife. These golden coverings weren't merely decorative, but served crucial spiritual functions that reflected both cultures' beliefs about death and resurrection. The golden eye coverings would enable the deceased to see clearly in the blazing light of the celestial realm, their metallic surface reflecting divine radiance. The golden tongue pieces ensured eloquent speech when the deceased faced judgment before Osiris, and needed to defend their earthly actions with persuasive arguments. This fusion of Egyptian and Roman burial traditions created mummies that were simultaneously ancient and contemporary, traditional and innovative, resulting in some of the most beautiful and enigmatic preserved remains that continue to captivate museum visitors with their golden eyes that seem almost alive with eternal watchfulness. 19. The Lost River Highway. For centuries, archaeologists struggled with one of ancient Egypt's most perplexing mysteries. How did workers transport millions of massive stone blocks across seemingly impossible desert terrain to build the pyramids without modern machinery or technology? The answer lay hidden beneath thousands of years of accumulated sand and silt, waiting for modern satellite technology to reveal its secrets. Using advanced ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery, scientists discovered the remains of a 64-kilometer-long branch of the Nile River that they named Aramat, Arabic for pyramids. This ancient waterway flowed directly past all major pyramid construction sites, serving as a massive liquid highway for transporting building materials. Granite blocks from Aswan quarries, located 500 miles to the south, could be loaded on specially constructed barges and floated downstream to construction sites with relative ease. During the pyramid-building era, this crucial waterway would have bustled with hundreds of boats carrying stone blocks, timber, food supplies, and workers, creating a complex logistics network that made the impossible monuments possible through the simple power of flowing water. 20. The mathematics of immortality. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as humanity's most ambitious mathematical achievement, composed of an almost incomprehensible 23 million individual stone blocks that were cut, transported, and positioned with mind-boggling precision. To truly grasp this staggering number, imagine counting one block every second without stopping. It would take you over 26 days of continuous counting to tally them all. Each block weighs between 25 and 16 tons, roughly equivalent to 15,000 modern automobiles stacked and arranged in perfect geometric harmony. The precision achieved by ancient builders remains astounding even by today's standards, with gaps between stones often thinner than a knife blade. The largest blocks, forming the king's chamber ceiling, weigh 80 tons each and were somehow maneuvered into position 150 feet above ground level, using only human power, ingenuity, and determination. Ancient project managers coordinated the work of thousands of laborers, stonemasons, and engineers across decades of construction, creating a logistical masterpiece that required feeding workers, organizing shifts, maintaining tools, and synchronizing the arrival of materials from distant quarries, all without computers, modern communication, or mechanical equipment. 21. The 500-mile journey. In an era when wheels were not commonly used for heavy transportation, ancient Egyptian engineers accomplished what seems impossible, moving massive granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons across 500 miles of challenging terrain from the quarries of Aswan to the pyramid construction sites at Giza. This journey represents one of history's greatest logistical achievements and testament to human determination. The epic voyage began in the blazing heat of southern Egypt, where skilled workers used copper tools and wooden wedges to extract granite from solid rock faces in carefully planned operations. The enormous blocks were then dragged to the Nile River using sledges, ramps, and coordinated human effort. Loading these massive stones onto specially constructed barges required engineering genius. A single 80-ton block needed a vessel the size of a modern cruise ship and crews of hundreds of men to navigate treacherous river conditions. The journey downstream took weeks and had to be carefully timed to coincide with favorable winds and optimal flood seasons, while experienced river pilots navigated around dangerous cataracts and shifting sandbars that could destroy an entire cargo shipment in moments. 22. The 3 sacred relics. Deep within the Great Pyramid's chambers that have echoed with profound silence for over 4,000 years, archaeologists discovered the only significant artifacts to survive both ancient grave robbers and the passage of millennia. 3 mysterious objects known as the Dixon relics. Found in 1872 by British engineer Wayneman Dixon, these humble items are extraordinary in their rarity and the tantalizing mysteries they represent. The collection consists of a copper hook that might have been a construction tool or ceremonial implement, a dolerite ball made from one of the hardest stones available to ancient Egyptians, and a piece of cedar wood imported from distant Lebanon. While they may appear mundane, these objects are priceless in their archaeological significance. What makes these relics truly remarkable is their miraculous survival. While grave robbers stripped the pyramid of golden treasures and precious artifacts thousands of years ago, these 3 modest objects remained hidden in secret chambers, forgotten by time. They represent our only direct physical connection to the pyramid's original contents, offering tantalizing but frustratingly incomplete clues about the beliefs, practices, and purposes of the mysterious pyramid builders. 23. The science of sand. The secret to moving multi-ton stone blocks across vast desert expanses wasn't brute force alone, but the ingenious application of physics, using one of Egypt's most abundant and overlooked resources. Ordinary sand transformed into an extraordinary tool. Modern experiments have confirmed that ancient Egyptian workers discovered wet sand reduces friction by up to 50% compared to dry sand, making seemingly impossible tasks achievable through human effort. The technique required precise water management and careful observation of environmental conditions. Too little moisture and the sand remained loose and difficult to work with. Too much water created muddy, sticky conditions that impeded movement. Workers learned to maintain perfect moisture levels, creating firm, slippery surfaces that allowed heavy sleds to glide smoothly across the ground. Teams of 20 to 30 men could move blocks weighing several tons using this method, coordinating their efforts with rhythmic work songs and synchronized pulling that distributed the enormous weight evenly. Water carriers constantly sprayed the sand ahead of advancing sleds, while others cleared obstacles, maintained wooden runners, and ensured optimal conditions for this ancient but effective transportation system that turned the desert itself into a massive, natural conveyor belt. 24. Pyramids of Light. Imagine approaching the pyramids of Giza not as the weathered, sandy-colored monuments we see today, but as brilliant white beacons of light visible from many miles away, gleaming like artificial mountains of captured sunlight under the intense Egyptian sky. Originally, each pyramid was completely encased in polished, white limestone, casing stones fitted so perfectly that the entire structure appeared as a single, seamless surface of blinding brilliance. The limestone was quarried from Tura, across the Nile, and prized for its pure white color and fine grain that could be polished to mirror-like perfection. Master stonemasons worked these casing blocks until they reflected sunlight with almost supernatural intensity. At dawn and dusk, the pyramids would have glowed like divine fires, visible across the entire Nile Valley and serving as celestial landmarks for travelers, merchants, and pilgrims approaching from great distances. The geometric precision was so perfect that visitors could see only perfectly straight lines running from base to apex, creating an overwhelming impression of supernatural rather than human construction that reinforced the divine nature of pharaonic power and the eternal glory of Egyptian civilization. 25. The Enemy of Eternity. The pyramids were designed and built to last forever, but they faced an unexpected enemy that their ancient builders never anticipated: the very desert environment that surrounded and protected them for millennia. Each day, as the Egyptian sun blazed overhead and temperatures soared past 120 degrees Fahrenheit, the massive limestone blocks expanded with the heat like breathing stone giants. Each night, as the desert cooled rapidly under clear, star-filled skies, the same blocks contracted with the dropping temperature, creating constant stress within the perfectly fitted masonry. This daily cycle of thermal expansion and contraction, repeated thousands of times over centuries, generated inexorable forces that slowly destroyed the pyramid's flawless facades. The precisely fitted casing stones, constructed with no gaps between them to maintain geometric perfection, couldn't accommodate this constant thermal movement and began pushing against each other with tremendous pressure. Ironically, the bent pyramid survived this thermal assault better than its more perfectly constructed neighbors because its builders had left small gaps between blocks, allowing for natural movement and demonstrating that sometimes imperfection in construction leads to better long-term preservation than mathematical precision. 26. Workers, not slaves. One of history's most persistent and dramatic myths finally crumbled when archaeologists excavated the workers' villages that housed the pyramid builders, revealing evidence that fundamentally transformed our understanding of ancient Egyptian society and labor practices. These weren't oppressed slaves driven by whips and desperation, but skilled workers who lived in well-organized communities with decent housing, organized medical care, and adequate nutrition. The workers' cemetery near the pyramids tells a remarkable story of dignity and respect in ancient labor relations. Skeletons show clear evidence of hard physical work, but also proof of medical treatment for injuries. Broken bones have been properly set and allowed to heal, indicating organized healthcare systems and genuine concern for worker welfare. These dedicated builders were well fed on diets of bread, beer, meat, and vegetables, with cattle bones showing cuts from choice portions typically reserved for valued individuals. Graffiti left by work gangs reveals team names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkor, suggesting camaraderie, pride in their monumental work, and a sense of shared purpose in creating monuments that would outlast their own lives and achieve a form of collective immortality. 26 years of dreams. The Great Pyramid wasn't built in a day, a year, or even a decade. It required 26 years of continuous, coordinated effort that represented one of history's longest and most ambitious construction projects, consuming the resources and attention of an entire civilization. Beginning around 2600 BCE during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, this massive undertaking transformed the Giza Plateau into humanity's greatest building site. For over a quarter century, thousands of workers reported to the construction site each day, carrying stones, mixing mortar, operating tools, and gradually raising one of humanity's most enduring achievements stone by stone. The project spanned an entire generation. Workers who began as energetic young men finished as experienced grandfathers, passing their specialized skills to sons and grandsons who continued the sacred work. Each year brought unique challenges. Organizing massive workforces during Nile flood seasons when farmers were available, coordinating stone deliveries from distant quarries, and maintaining quality standards as the structure grew higher and construction became increasingly complex and dangerous. The pyramid rose approximately 55 meters per year, requiring the placement of an average of 12 massive stone blocks per hour during daylight working hours, creating a pace of construction that demanded extraordinary organization, planning, and sustained effort. 28. The Foreman's Diary. In 2013, archaeologists made a discovery that brought the mysterious pyramid builders to life in startling, human detail. The carefully preserved work diary of Mirer, a gang leader who transported limestone from Tura quarries to the Giza Plateau during the 27th year of Khufu's reign. Written on papyrus in hieratic script, these documents represent the oldest known papyri and provide our only contemporary, first-hand account of pyramid construction. Mirer's meticulous daily records reveal the sophisticated logistics and bureaucratic organization behind history's greatest building project, reading like modern shipping manifests with detailed information about cargo loads, travel times, delivery schedules, and workforce management. His crew used boats to transport blocks on the Nile, then navigated a complex system of artificial canals to reach the pyramid site. The diary entries document 10-day work shifts followed by rest periods, coordination with multiple other specialized gangs, and the constant challenges of managing weather conditions, equipment maintenance, and supply chain logistics. Remarkably, these everyday work records survived when royal treasures and golden artifacts were long ago lost to grave robbers, proving that sometimes the most mundane documents provide the most valuable insights into ancient life and the remarkable organizational capabilities of Egyptian civilization. 29. The Boy King's Crown. When 9-year-old Tutankhamun ascended to Egypt's throne around 1332 BCE, he inherited far more than royal power. He received a kingdom torn apart by the most radical religious revolution in Egyptian history and the overwhelming responsibility of healing a divided civilization. His predecessor, the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, had attempted to completely transform Egyptian religion by abandoning thousands of years of traditional worship. Akhenaten had closed ancient temples, dismissed powerful priesthoods, defaced monuments to traditional gods, and moved the capital to a new city called Akhetaten, creating religious and political chaos that weakened Egypt's international standing and angered the population. The boy pharaoh, originally named Tutankhaten in honor of Akhenaten's sun god Aten, faced the impossible task of restoring order without triggering civil war. Guided by wise advisors and showing remarkable political wisdom for his age, young Tutankhamun made the crucial decision to restore traditional Egyptian religion, symbolically changing his name to honor Ammonius, the ancient king of gods. He reopened closed temples, restored damaged statues, and reinstated the complex religious festivals that had sustained Egyptian culture for millennia, successfully healing the religious wounds and preparing Egypt for future greatness. 30. The legend of Ramesses. Ramesses II didn't simply rule Egypt. He dominated it with such overwhelming charisma and success that his 66-year reign became the standard by which all future pharaohs measured themselves, with many adopting his name in hope of capturing even a fraction of his legendary greatness. Born around 1303 BCE, he ascended the throne as a young man and proceeded to outlive most of his subjects while building an empire that stretched from Sudan to Syria. His personal life was as impressive as his political achievements. Historical records credit him with over 200 wives and concubines, and more than 150 children, creating a royal family tree that resembled a small forest of potential heirs. He lived to the remarkable age of 96 in an era when most people died before reaching 40, becoming a living legend who seemed immortal to his subjects. His reign witnessed unprecedented prosperity, massive construction projects that transformed the Egyptian landscape, and military victories that expanded Egypt's influence to its greatest extent in history. Ramesses built more temples, statues, and monuments than any other pharaoh, literally carving his name and image across the ancient world while signing the world's first known peace treaty and establishing diplomatic relationships that brought decades of stability and prosperity to his empire. 31. The Mummy's Passport. In 1974, archaeologists noticed alarming signs that the mummy of Ramesses II was rapidly deteriorating due to a dangerous fungal infection that threatened to destroy the mortal remains of Egypt's greatest pharaoh, creating an international crisis that required immediate action. The solution involved transporting the 3,000-year-old mummy to Paris for advanced medical examination and treatment, but international law created an unexpected bureaucratic obstacle. Egyptian authorities found themselves in the surreal position of issuing Ramesses II an official Egyptian passport, complete with photograph and listing his occupation as king deceased, marking one of the most bizarre moments in archaeological history. The ancient pharaoh who had once commanded vast armies and ruled an empire now required proper travel documentation like any modern citizen. French officials received the mummy at Orly Airport with full military honors, typically reserved for visiting heads of state, recognizing Ramesses as the sovereign he had been in life over 3,000 years earlier. The successful medical treatment revealed fascinating details about the pharaoh's health, appearance, and lifestyle, while the passport incident highlighted the strange intersection of ancient grandeur and modern bureaucracy, where 20th century international law encountered 13th century BCE royalty in a meeting of different worlds separated by millennia. 32. Cleopatra's Timeline. One of history's most mind-bending revelations challenges our entire perception of ancient chronology and demonstrates just how extraordinarily long Egyptian civilization endured. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, lived closer in time to the Apollo moon landing in 1969 than to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. When Cleopatra ruled Egypt from 51 to 30 BCE, the Great Pyramid was already an ancient monument over 2,500 years old. To put this staggering timeline in perspective, the pyramid was as ancient to Cleopatra as the Roman Colosseum is to us today, making her relationship to the pyramid builders similar to our relationship to ancient Rome. When Cleopatra walked through Memphis and gazed upon the pyramids during royal ceremonies, she was looking at monuments built by ancestors so distant they seemed mythological. The Great Pyramid had already survived the rise and fall of the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom, weathered invasions by Assyrians, Persians, and Greeks, and attracted ancient tourists who paid to climb the monument, just as modern visitors do today. Cleopatra herself was actually Macedonian Greek by ancestry, descended from one of Alexander the Great's generals, making her culturally closer to ancient Athens than to the pyramid builders who created Egypt's most enduring symbols. 33. the female king. When Hatshepsut claimed the throne of Egypt around 1479 BCE, she faced an unprecedented challenge that required extraordinary political intelligence and creative problem-solving. Ruling as pharaoh in a civilization where kingship was considered fundamentally and divinely masculine. Her innovative solution was to literally transform herself into the visual image of male kingship while maintaining her actual identity. Official statues and temple reliefs depict her wearing the traditional pharaonic false beard, the sacred cobra crown, and full masculine royal regalia, while she bound her breasts and wore male royal clothing during important public ceremonies and religious festivals. This wasn't mere costume, but a sophisticated political strategy that allowed her to claim divine legitimacy within existing cultural frameworks. Hatshepsut's reign was remarkably successful and peaceful, focusing on trade expansion, architectural achievements, and economic prosperity rather than military conquest and territorial expansion. She organized profitable trading expeditions to the mysterious land of Punt, bringing back exotic goods like gold, ivory, and incense trees, while her greatest architectural achievement was the stunning mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, carved directly into limestone cliffs and considered one of ancient Egypt's most beautiful and innovative buildings. 34. The Festival King. Ramesses II didn't just rule Egypt with political and military skill. He celebrated his reign with unprecedented extravagance, hosting 13 or 14 said festivals during his remarkable 66-year rule, more than any other pharaoh in the entire history of ancient Egypt. The said festival represented the most important royal celebration in Egyptian culture, traditionally held after a pharaoh had successfully ruled for 30 years and then repeated every few years thereafter. These weren't simple parties or political gatherings, but elaborate religious ceremonies lasting for days that symbolically renewed the pharaoh's divine powers and reaffirmed his supernatural connection to the gods. Each festival required Ramesses to prove his continued physical and spiritual fitness to rule through demanding ritual performances. The pharaoh had to complete ritual runs around specially constructed courses, demonstrating his vitality before assembled crowds of nobles, priests, and foreign dignitaries who traveled from across the known world to witness these spectacular events. The festivals required enormous resources, feeding thousands of guests, constructing temporary buildings and ceremonial structures, commissioning new statues and temple reliefs, and organizing entertainment, including music, dancing, theatrical performances, and religious pageantry that reinforced royal authority and demonstrated Egypt's prosperity and divine favor to both subjects and international observers. 35. The Great House. The word pharaoh that we automatically associate with Egyptian kings originally had nothing to do with individual rulers, but referred to the royal palace where divine authority resided, emphasizing the eternal institution of kingship rather than temporary mortal occupants. In ancient Egyptian, per-ao literally translates to great house, focusing attention on the sacred building that housed divine power rather than the human being who temporarily wielded it. This linguistic choice reveals profound insights into Egyptian political philosophy. The palace, as the permanent seat of divine authority, was considered more sacred and enduring than any individual king who might occupy it for a few decades. During the Old Kingdom, Egyptians would say the Great House has decreed rather than the king has decreed, similar to modern expressions like the White House announced. The transition from referring to the institution to the person happened gradually over many centuries, with pharaoh eventually becoming a direct personal title around the New Kingdom period, reflecting the increasing personalization of royal power and growing personality cults around individual rulers. The original meaning reminds us that Egyptian kingship was conceived as an eternal, divine institution temporarily inhabited by mortal individuals who serve as vessels for supernatural authority, with each king being merely a temporary resident of the great house that embodied permanent royal power. 36. The late title. Despite what countless Hollywood movies and popular books suggest, ancient Egyptian kings weren't actually called pharaoh, until surprisingly late in their civilization's long and complex history, revealing how modern perceptions of the past can differ dramatically from historical reality. For over 1,000 years during the Old and Middle Kingdoms, Egyptian rulers were addressed by elaborate titles like His Majesty, the King, or complex epithets describing their divine nature and earthly accomplishments. The specific title Pharaoh didn't become standard royal address until the New Kingdom's 18th dynasty around 1400 BC, meaning the legendary builders of the Great Pyramid, rulers of the Old Kingdom, and many other famous ancient kings were never actually called Pharaoh during their lifetimes. This linguistic shift coincided with Egypt's imperial expansion and increasing contact with foreign nations. International diplomacy and trade relationships required standardized titles that could be easily translated and understood by foreign courts conducting business with Egypt, while the adoption of Pharaoh also reflected the increasing centralization of power and growing personality cults around individual rulers. When modern people refer to ancient Egyptian rulers as pharaohs, we're applying a title that many of the most famous ancient kings never used, demonstrating how contemporary language and assumptions can sometimes misrepresent historical realities. 37. The Dynasty Count. Over the course of nearly 3 millennia of continuous civilization, approximately 170 to 190 pharaohs ruled Egypt, though the exact number remains hotly debated among Egyptologists due to incomplete historical records, disputed royal successions, and regional rulers who claimed royal titles during periods of political fragmentation. This impressive tally spans 31 dynasties from the legendary unification under Narmer around 3100 BCE to Cleopatra's dramatic death in 30 BCE. The count includes world-famous names like Tutankhamun, Ramesses II, and Hatshepsut, but also dozens of obscure rulers known only from fragmentary inscriptions, damaged king lists, or brief mentions in foreign diplomatic correspondence. Many pharaohs' names were deliberately erased by successors seeking to rewrite history for political or religious reasons. Other rulers governed simultaneously in different regions during chaotic periods of civil war and political breakdown, while foreign invasions sometimes placed non-Egyptian rulers on the throne who adopted traditional pharaonic titles and customs. Modern Egyptologists continue discovering evidence of previously unknown pharaohs through ongoing archaeological excavations, while simultaneously debating whether certain individuals were legitimate kings or merely local governors and nobles with royal pretensions, making the final count of Egyptian rulers an ongoing scholarly challenge. 38. The Religious Revolutionary. When Tutankhamun became pharaoh, he inherited a kingdom spiritually and politically devastated by the most radical religious revolution in ancient Egyptian history, facing the enormous challenge of healing deep cultural wounds while avoiding civil war or religious conflict. His predecessor, Akhenaten, had attempted to completely transform Egyptian civilization by abandoning the traditional pantheon of gods that had sustained Egyptian culture for over 2,000 years. Akhenaten's revolution involved closing ancient temples, dismissing powerful priesthoods that employed thousands of people, defacing sacred monuments to traditional gods, and moving the capital to a new city called Akhetaten, where only Aten, the sun disk, could be worshipped. This upheaval affected every aspect of Egyptian life, from art styles and architecture to daily religious practices and international diplomacy. When the young king assumed power, Egypt faced international isolation, economic weakness, and dangerous religious divisions that threatened to tear the country apart permanently. His advisors guided him through a careful restoration process that required extraordinary political skill. Tutankhamun changed his name from Tutankhaten to honor Ammonius, reopened closed temples, restored damaged statues, and reinstated traditional religious practices, successfully healing the spiritual wounds and preparing Egypt for the golden age that would follow under later dynasties. 39. History's First Doctor. In 3533 BCE, over 5,500 years ago, a remarkable man named Sekhetinench achieved medical immortality by becoming the first physician ever recorded in human history, establishing a medical profession that would influence healing practices for millennia. Serving as chief physician to Pharaoh Sahura of the 5th dynasty, Seqenenanch successfully treated the king for a serious disease affecting his nostrils, an achievement significant enough to be permanently recorded in stone for posterity. This groundbreaking medical milestone predates other famous ancient physicians by thousands of years. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, wouldn't be born for another 3,000 years, making Seqenenanch's achievement all the more remarkable. He practiced medicine in an era when supernatural explanations dominated medical thinking, yet his success in treating royal ailments suggests sophisticated practical knowledge and systematic approaches to healing. Ancient Egyptian physicians of this early period combined religious rituals with herbal remedies, surgical procedures, and careful observation of symptoms, developing medical practices through empirical experimentation and accumulated experience. Seqenenanch's position as royal physician indicates that medical specialization already existed in ancient Egypt, with the most skilled practitioners serving the pharaoh's court, establishing the medical profession as a respected and essential part of civilized society. 40. The world's first dentist. Meet Hezi-Ray, a pioneering individual who achieved dental immortality around 2600 BCE by becoming the world's first known dentist, establishing a medical specialty that remains essential to human health and comfort over 4,500 years later. Serving during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser, Hezi-Ray held the impressive and specific title Chief of Dentists and Physician to the king, making him not only the earliest dentist, but also one of history's first documented medical specialists. His elaborate tomb at Saqqara, decorated with beautifully carved wooden panels depicting his life and achievements, reflects the high social status and respect accorded to skilled medical practitioners in ancient Egyptian society. Hezi-Ray's dental practice would have been both challenging and absolutely essential for maintaining health and quality of life. Ancient Egyptians suffered terrible dental problems due to their coarse diet of bread contaminated with sand and grit from stone ground grain, causing tooth were so severe that many people's teeth were completely worn down to the roots by middle age. Archaeological evidence shows that ancient Egyptian dentists could treat painful tooth abscesses, perform difficult extractions, and even create primitive dental prosthetics using gold wire to stabilize loose teeth, establishing dental practice as a respected medical profession dedicated to relieving human suffering. 41. Ancient cancer detectives. Ancient Egyptian physicians possessed diagnostic abilities that wouldn't be matched in many parts of the world for thousands of years, successfully identifying complex diseases like diabetes and cancer through careful clinical observation and systematic examination techniques that laid the foundation for modern medical practice. Medical papyri describe recognizing cancer symptoms with remarkable accuracy, noting hard masses, ulcerating wounds that wouldn't heal, and the characteristic spreading pattern of malignant tumors. They distinguish between benign and malignant growths, understanding that some tumors pose greater dangers than others and require different treatment approaches. For diabetes diagnosis, they observed excessive urination, constant thirst, and unexplained weight loss, even noting that diabetic urine attracted insects due to its elevated sugar content. These impressive diagnostic achievements required systematic patient observation, detailed record keeping, and the development of clinical methods that allowed physicians to recognize disease patterns and predict outcomes based on symptoms. Ancient Egyptian doctors examined patients thoroughly, checking pulse rates, observing skin color changes, noting behavioral symptoms, and maintaining detailed medical records that allowed them to track disease progression and evaluate treatment effectiveness, establishing clinical observation as the cornerstone of scientific medical practice that continues to guide physicians today. 42. The shepherd of the anus. Ancient Egyptian medicine achieved such remarkable specialization that it included what might be history's most colorfully titled medical specialty. The proctologist, whose official designation Neru Fuit literally translates as shepherd of the anus, reflecting the practical, straightforward approach that Egyptian physicians took toward medical specialization regardless of social sensitivities. This amusing but accurate title demonstrates the sophisticated organization of Egyptian medical practice and their understanding that different body systems required specific expertise. These specialized physicians treated hemorrhoids, anal fissures, complex digestive disorders, and various intestinal problems that plagued ancient populations, using specialized instruments, medicated suppositories, and surgical techniques described in detailed medical papyri. The title shepherd implies careful guidance, protection, and management, suggesting these specialists were responsible for maintaining the health of this particular body region. The frankness with which Egyptians discussed and treated such conditions contrasts sharply with later cultures that often avoided addressing these medical issues due to social taboos and embarrassment. This medical specialization, documented as early as 2200 BCE, shows that ancient Egyptians prioritized practical health care over social discomfort, establishing comprehensive medical care that addressed all aspects of human health with scientific precision and remarkable cultural maturity. 43. Women healers of Nile. Ancient Egypt demonstrated remarkable progressiveness by allowing women to practice medicine from the earliest periods of their history, with female physicians documented thousands of years before other civilizations recognized women's medical capabilities. Merit Ta, who served as royal court chief physician around 2700 BCE, holds the extraordinary distinction of being the first woman physician known to history, predating any other documented female doctor by millennia and indicating her exceptional skills and high social status. Another notable female physician, Peshet, carried the impressive title Lady Overseer of Female Physicians, suggesting not only that women practiced medicine, but that they had developed their own professional hierarchy, specializations, and administrative systems. Female doctors likely specialized in obstetrics, gynecology, and pediatrics, though evidence suggests some practiced general medicine alongside male colleagues. The acceptance of female physicians reflects Egyptian society's relatively egalitarian approach to professional roles compared to other ancient civilizations that restricted women's participation in public life and intellectual pursuits. Egyptian medical papyri contain no restrictions on female practitioners, and tomb inscriptions honor female doctors with the same respect and recognition accorded to their male counterparts, establishing a precedent for female medical practitioners that wouldn't be matched in many cultures for thousands of years. 44. The Divine Physician. Imhotep represents one of history's most remarkable individuals, a Renaissance man who lived over 4,000 years before the Renaissance, achieving such extraordinary accomplishments that he was eventually worshipped as a god. Living around 2667 to 2600 BCE during the Third Dynasty, Imhotep served as chancellor to Pharaoh Djoser and is best known as the brilliant architect who designed the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, the world's first monumental stone building and architectural wonder. However, his revolutionary contributions to medicine were equally groundbreaking and ultimately led to his deification as a healing god. As physician to the royal court, Imhotep pioneered secular medicine by arguing that diseases occurred through natural causes rather than divine punishment, a radical concept that challenged traditional supernatural explanations for illness. His medical treatises, though now lost to time, were studied and quoted by physicians for over 2,000 years, influencing medical practice throughout the ancient world. Imhotep's approach combined careful observation with practical treatment, moving away from purely magical healing toward evidence-based medicine, and he is credited with diagnosing and treating over 200 different diseases affecting various body systems, from digestive disorders to eye conditions, performing surgical procedures that included setting broken bones and treating complex wounds. 45. The Great Medical Encyclopedia. The Ebers Papyrus, dating to around 1550 BCE, represents one of humanity's most comprehensive medical documents, an ancient encyclopedia containing over 800 medical remedies and treatments that preserves sophisticated Egyptian medical knowledge for posterity and continues to amaze modern physicians. This remarkable document, measuring over 20 meters long when completely unrolled, reads like a practical medical textbook covering virtually every aspect of healthcare and treatment. The papyrus contains meticulously detailed prescriptions for topical ointments made from honey, animal fats, and medicinal plants, oral medications including pills and liquid medicines, and inhalation treatments using aromatic herbs and healing resins. Each remedy includes specific dosages, step-by-step preparation methods, and precise application instructions, demonstrating sophisticated pharmaceutical knowledge and systematic approach to medical treatment. The treatments cover an astonishing range of medical conditions: eye diseases, digestive disorders, skin conditions, gynecological problems, respiratory ailments, and various infections that plagued ancient populations. Some remedies reveal surprising medical insights that modern research has confirmed. Honey treatments for wounds that we now know have antibacterial properties, willow bark preparations for pain relief containing salicin, related to aspirin, and herbal contraceptives that scientific studies have proven effective, establishing ancient Egyptian medicine as remarkably advanced for its time. 46. Ancient anesthesia. Thousands of years before modern anesthesia revolutionized surgery, ancient Egyptian physicians discovered that opium poppies and mandar plants could induce deep, pain-free sleep during surgical procedures, allowing them to perform complex operations while patients remained completely unconscious and unaware of pain. This remarkable medical breakthrough, called sleep therapy, enabled Egyptian surgeons to attempt procedures that would have been impossible on conscious, struggling patients. The technique involved preparing concentrated extracts from these powerful plants and administering them in carefully measured doses before surgery, with opium providing natural opiates that blocked pain signals and induced unconsciousness. Mandrake contributed additional sedative effects and muscle relaxation, creating comprehensive anesthesia that allowed for delicate surgical work. Egyptian physicians learned to combine these substances with wine or beer to create potent anesthetic cocktails tailored to different types of procedures and patient needs. Medical papyri contain detailed recipes for these anesthetic preparations, including precise dosage instructions and serious warnings about their potentially dangerous effects if misused, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of plant-based pharmacology and systematic approach to pain management that predates similar developments in other civilizations by thousands of years. 47. Accidental antibiotics. Long before Alexander Fleming's famous discovery of penicillin in 1928, ancient Egyptian physicians unknowingly pioneered antibiotic therapy by applying moldy bread to infected wounds, creating an accidental medical breakthrough that effectively treated bacterial infections through natural antimicrobial agents. This seemingly primitive treatment actually represented sophisticated medical observation and practical application of naturally occurring healing compounds. Egyptian doctors noticed that certain types of bread mold seemed to promote wound healing and prevent dangerous infections from spreading, leading them to deliberately cultivate and apply moldy bread as a standard treatment for serious wounds and infected injuries. Modern scientific analysis has confirmed their ancient wisdom. The molds growing on bread often include Penicillium species, the same genus that produces life-saving penicillin. These naturally occurring molds secrete powerful compounds that kill harmful bacteria, effectively treating infections through antibiotic action that saved countless lives in the ancient world. The Egyptian application process involved thoroughly cleaning wounds, applying fresh moldy bread directly to infected areas, and changing dressings regularly to maintain therapeutic effectiveness. While medical papyri described this treatment as particularly effective for serious infections that had resisted other remedies, establishing Egyptian physicians as accidental pioneers of antibiotic therapy. 48. Prosthetic pioneers. Ancient Egyptian craftsmen and physicians created the world's first functioning prosthetic devices, with remarkable artificial body parts discovered on mummies representing humanity's earliest attempts at replacing lost limbs and restoring normal function to amputees. These pioneering prosthetics weren't merely cosmetic decorations, but were carefully engineered to restore actual mobility and function to people who had lost fingers, toes, or other body parts. The most famous example, found attached to a female mummy, consists of a meticulously crafted wooden and leather toe that shows clear signs of wear from actual use, proving it was employed during the person's lifetime rather than just placed for burial purposes. The prosthetic was anatomically shaped, painted to match natural skin color, and attached using leather straps that distributed weight properly during walking. Microscopic analysis reveals where patterns consistent with normal walking and daily activities, demonstrating that ancient Egyptian amputees could maintain mobility and independence using these early prosthetic devices. Other discoveries include artificial fingers made from carved wood and metal, some incorporating sophisticated joint mechanisms that allowed limited movement and flexibility, while the creation of functional prosthetics required advanced understanding of human anatomy, weight distribution, biomechanics, and skilled craftsmanship in working with various materials to create devices that provided both physical and psychological benefits to users. 49. Ancient pregnancy tests. Ancient Egyptian physicians developed one of history's first pregnancy tests using a method that seems bizarre by modern standards, but was actually scientifically sound and remarkably effective for its time period. Women suspected of being pregnant would urinate on barley and emmer wheat seeds, then carefully observe which grain sprouted first to determine both pregnancy status and the baby's gender. If barley grew first, the baby would be male. If emmer wheat sprouted first, the baby would be female. If neither grain grew at all, the woman wasn't pregnant. This ingenious test, described in medical papyri from around 1350 BCE, represents sophisticated understanding of how hormonal changes affect biological processes and plant growth. Modern scientific testing has confirmed that this ancient method actually works with approximately 70% accuracy for detecting pregnancy, as the elevated estrogen levels in pregnant women's urine do indeed stimulate faster grain germination compared to non-pregnant women's urine. While the gender prediction aspect has no scientific basis, the pregnancy detection method was remarkably effective and practical for ancient physicians who lacked modern laboratory testing, demonstrating how careful observation and systematic experimentation led to the development of diagnostic tools that bridge the gap between supernatural beliefs and scientific medicine. 50. Bread and beer economy. Ancient Egypt operated on a fascinating economic system where workers received their daily wages not in gold, silver, or precious metals, but in the two most essential commodities of survival: freshly baked bread and nutritious beer that sustained entire communities and powered massive construction projects. This wasn't primitive barter, but a sophisticated economy based on standardized rations calculated to meet nutritional needs and reflect social hierarchy. Workers building pyramids, temples, and monuments received daily allotments that varied according to their skills and social status. A typical laborer might receive 10 loaves of bread and 2 jugs of beer per day, while supervisors and skilled craftsmen earned larger portions reflecting their specialized knowledge and greater responsibilities. This system made perfect economic sense in a society where these items represented the foundation of nutrition and survival. Bread provided essential carbohydrates and calories needed for heavy physical labor, while beer supplied additional nutrition, safe hydration, and vitamins that water alone couldn't provide in an era before modern food preservation and dietary supplements. Government-operated bakeries and breweries functioned on massive scales to supply these rations, employing thousands of workers and representing major industrial operations that required sophisticated planning, resource management, and distribution networks to feed Egypt's enormous workforce. 51. 18,000 years of brewing. Archaeological evidence from the Paleolithic site of Wadi Qubaniya reveals that beer production in Egypt stretches back an astounding 18,000 years, making it one of humanity's oldest and most enduring technologies that predates agriculture, writing, and complex civilization by thousands of years. This remarkable discovery pushes back the origins of Egyptian brewing far beyond the Pharaonic period into prehistoric times, when early humans were developing fundamental survival technologies. The evidence consists of specialized stone tools designed specifically for processing grain and chemical residue, indicating fermentation processes that could only result from intentional beer production rather than accidental fermentation. This ancient brewing represented more than simple alcohol creation. It was crucial survival technology that converted perishable grains into stable, nutritious beverages that could be safely stored. Early beer was thick, soupy, and highly nutritious, resembling liquid bread more than modern alcoholic beverages, while the brewing process made water safer to drink by killing harmful bacteria through fermentation and alcohol content. These prehistoric Egyptian brewers developed sophisticated techniques for controlling fermentation, flavoring beverages with dates and aromatic herbs, and creating different beer varieties for various occasions, establishing a brewing tradition that would continue for 18 millennia and influence food production technologies throughout the ancient world. 52. Children's daily beer. In ancient Egypt, beer wasn't just an adult beverage, but served as an essential component of children's daily nutrition, consumed by people of all ages as a dietary staple rather than an intoxicating drink that modern parents would find alarming. This practice made perfect sense in ancient context, as Egyptian beer was fundamentally different from today's alcoholic beverages in both content and purpose. Ancient Egyptian beer was thick, soupy, and had relatively low alcohol content, making it more like nutritious liquid food than an intoxicating beverage, while children received smaller portions of specially weakened beer designed to provide essential calories, vitamins, and minerals unavailable from other sources. The brewing process made these beverages significantly safer than water, which often carried dangerous bacteria and parasites. Beer production involved boiling grains in water, then fermenting the mixture with beneficial yeasts, creating sterile, nutritious drinks that could be stored safely for extended periods without refrigeration or chemical preservation. Different beer varieties existed for different age groups: weak, sweet beer for children, stronger versions for adults, and specially brewed ceremonial beers for religious occasions, while medical papyri describe using beer as a vehicle for administering medicines to children by mixing therapeutic herbs and honey into weakened beer to create palatable treatments that ensured proper dosing. 53. Obsession with cleanliness. Ancient Egyptians were renowned throughout the ancient world for their extraordinary dedication to personal hygiene, developing cleanliness practices that wouldn't be matched in many cultures for thousands of years, and establishing standards of personal care that amazed foreign visitors and contributed to better health outcomes. Their obsession with cleanliness stemmed from both practical health concerns and deeply held religious beliefs about purity, divine favor, and spiritual preparation. Every day, Egyptians of all social classes bathed multiple times using effective soaps made from animal fats and vegetable oils mixed with alkaline salts, creating cleansing agents that removed dirt, sweat, bacteria, and unpleasant odors. Both men and women regularly shaved all body hair, including head hair, eyebrows, and facial hair, believing that hair harbored dangerous parasites and disease-causing organisms. This universal practice was so ingrained that Egyptians wore elaborate wigs made from human hair, sheep's wool, or plant fibers for protection from intense sun and for fashionable appearance during social occasions. They clearly understood the crucial connection between poor hygiene and disease transmission, implementing cleanliness practices that significantly reduced infection rates and improved life expectancy compared to other ancient societies that neglected personal hygiene. While Egyptian priests underwent even more rigorous purification rituals with multiple daily baths and strict cleanliness standards required for temple service. 54. Golden afterlife grooming. The importance of personal grooming in ancient Egyptian culture extended far beyond earthly life into the eternal afterlife, with wealthy individuals buried alongside golden razors and tweezers to ensure they could maintain proper appearance and dignity throughout eternity in the company of gods and ancestors. These weren't merely decorative burial items, but functional tools crafted from precious metals and designed for actual use in the celestial realm. Golden razors, some inlaid with silver and decorated with intricate religious engravings, demonstrate the extremely high value placed on personal grooming and a sincere belief that physical appearance mattered greatly in the afterlife where the deceased would interact with divine beings. The quality and craftsmanship of these burial tools often exceeded everyday grooming implements, reflecting the special importance of eternal beauty. Tomb paintings frequently depict the deceased being carefully groomed by celestial servants in the afterlife, with golden tools playing essential roles in these divine beauty routines that prepared souls for eternal service to the gods. The inclusion of grooming tools in burial assemblages reveals Egyptian beliefs about the continuity of daily life after death. They genuinely expected to maintain the same high standards of personal care in the afterlife as they had during their mortal existence, making golden grooming tools essential equipment for the eternal journey ahead. 55. Ancient deodorant innovation. Long before modern personal care products revolutionized hygiene, ancient Egyptians invented effective deodorant using a surprisingly successful combination of citrus oils and cinnamon that masked unpleasant body odors while providing antimicrobial protection against bacteria responsible for creating offensive smells. This innovation addressed practical challenges of maintaining pleasant personal fragrance in Egypt's hot, dry climate where daily activities often involved intensive physical labor. Egyptian perfumers and physicians experimented extensively with various aromatic substances, discovering that citrus oils and ground cinnamon bark could be combined into paste-like preparations that adhered well to skin and provided long-lasting odor control throughout demanding workdays. The citrus component provided fresh, clean scents that effectively masked unpleasant odors, while cinnamon offered natural antimicrobial properties that reduced odor-causing bacteria. These early deodorants were often mixed with animal fats or plant oils to create smooth, spreadable consistencies that could be easily applied to underarms and other areas prone to excessive sweating and odor production. Wealthy Egyptians enhanced their deodorant preparations with additional exotic ingredients like myrrh, frankincense, or imported spices, creating distinctive signature scents that indicated social status and personal preferences while contributing to Egyptians' widespread reputation for pleasant personal fragrance and superior cleanliness practices. 56. Brief lives in ancient times. Despite their advanced medical knowledge, sophisticated civilization, and remarkable achievements in science and technology, ancient Egyptians faced the harsh reality of dramatically shortened lifespans that would shock modern people accustomed to longer life expectancy. Women lived an average of only 30 years while men reached about 34 years before death claimed them, statistics that reflect the numerous health challenges plaguing ancient populations. Women faced particular risks during their reproductive years, with death during childbirth representing one of the leading causes of female mortality in an era without modern obstetric care, antibiotics, or surgical intervention for complications. The absence of effective antibiotics meant that minor infections could quickly become fatal systemic diseases, while limited understanding of disease transmission allowed epidemics to devastate entire communities. Dental problems, exacerbated by coarse, sand-contaminated diets, frequently led to serious infections that spread throughout the body and caused death, while work-related accidents were common among laborers, farmers, and craftsmen who lacked modern safety equipment and procedures. Environmental hazards like dangerous Nile wildlife, extreme weather conditions, and occupational exposure to harmful substances further reduced life expectancy, while even minor injuries that modern medicine treats routinely could become life-threatening without proper antiseptic care, sterile surgical techniques, and effective infection control methods. 57. Deadly river companions. The life-giving Nile River that sustained Egyptian civilization and made agriculture possible also harbored deadly predators that claimed the lives of travelers, workers, and even powerful pharaohs throughout ancient history, creating a complex relationship between life-sustaining water and ever-present mortal danger. Massive Nile crocodiles, reaching lengths of over 20 feet and weighing more than a ton, lurked in murky waters with deadly patience, capable of attacking boats and dragging unsuspecting victims to watery graves. Equally dangerous were the deceptively bulky hippopotamuses that could move with surprising speed and possessed bone-crushing jaws capable of biting boats completely in half with a single snap. These river horses were responsible for more human deaths than any other large African animal, attacking without warning when they felt threatened or when protecting their young and territory. The legendary Pharaoh Menes, credited with unifying Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE and founding Egyptian civilization, reportedly met his dramatic end in a hippo attack, demonstrating that even divine kings weren't safe from the Nile's dangerous inhabitants. Boat travel, essential for transportation and trade throughout Egypt, required constant vigilance and careful navigation to avoid these powerful predators. While Egyptian texts and tomb paintings frequently depict hunting scenes where nobles battle these dangerous animals both as sport and as necessary pest control to make waterways safer for ordinary citizens. 58. Childhood freedom. Ancient Egyptian children enjoyed a remarkable degree of physical freedom that would surprise and perhaps shock modern parents, remaining completely unclothed until approximately age 6 as part of normal cultural practice that reflected practical adaptation to Egypt's climate and beliefs about childhood innocence. This wasn't neglect or poverty, but a deliberate cultural choice that recognized children's need for physical freedom and natural development. The practice reflected Egyptian beliefs about childhood as a special period of innocence and natural freedom before the social responsibilities, modesty requirements, and adult dress codes took effect with formal education and social training. Children spent their days playing freely in the sunshine, swimming in irrigation canals, and learning through hands-on exploration of their environment without clothing restrictions. This physical freedom allowed children to develop natural immunity to common ailments, build physical strength through unrestricted movement, and adapt completely to Egypt's intense climate from an early age, while parents dressed children only for special occasions, religious ceremonies, or during cooler weather. The transition to wearing clothing around age 6 marked the beginning of formal education and social training as children prepared to assume adult roles and responsibilities. While Egyptian art frequently depicts naked children playing games, swimming, fishing, and helping with household tasks, showing this practice as completely normal and accepted throughout society. 59. Status through style. In ancient Egyptian society, personal appearance functioned as an elaborate visual language that instantly communicated social status, wealth, occupation, and cultural identity through sophisticated combinations of wigs, jewelry, and cosmetics that carried specific meanings and sometimes legal implications. This wasn't mere vanity, but a complex social system where appearance choices affected how others treated you and what opportunities were available. Wealthy Egyptians wore elaborate wigs made from human hair, often styled in intricate braids, curls, and geometric patterns that required hours of professional attention from skilled hairdressers and wig makers. These expensive wigs served multiple practical and social purposes, protecting shaved heads from sun damage, displaying wealth through costly materials and expert craftsmanship, and following religious requirements for cleanliness. Jewelry played equally important social roles, with gold and precious stone pieces indicating not just personal wealth, but specific social positions, professional affiliations, and religious duties within Egyptian society. Different jewelry styles clearly marked priests, government officials, merchants, and craftsmen, creating a visual hierarchy that everyone could read and understand, while cosmetics extended beyond beauty to include protective and religious functions. Kohl around the eyes prevented sun glare and eye infections while honoring protective deities, and various face paints indicated participation in religious festivals or mourning rituals. 60. The Scattered God. The mythological murder and dismemberment of Osiris represents one of ancient Egypt's most gruesome and influential stories, involving a calculated act of violence so complete and horrific that it established the eternal pattern for all future mummification practices throughout Egyptian history. According to the powerful myth, Set's overwhelming jealousy of his brother Osiris drove him to commit not just murder, but systematic desecration designed to prevent any possibility of resurrection or proper burial. After killing Osiris through treachery and deception, Set hacked the divine body into 14 separate pieces and deliberately scattered them across the entire length and breadth of Egypt, ensuring that his brother could never receive proper burial or achieve resurrection in the afterlife. This wasn't random violence, but carefully calculated destruction intended to permanently destroy Osiris's divine essence. Isis, devastated by her husband's brutal death, embarked on one of mythology's most determined and touching quests, methodically searching every corner of Egypt to recover the scattered body parts with unwavering dedication and love. She successfully found 13 of the 14 pieces, painstakingly reassembling them with divine magic and creating the first mummy. But the missing 14th piece, Osiris's penis, had been devoured by a fish, forcing Isis to create an artificial replacement from gold and magical power, establishing the mythological foundation for Egyptian mummification practices that would endure for thousands of years. 61. The Sacred Forbidden Fish. The Oxyrhynchus fish achieved unique and eternal notoriety in ancient Egyptian culture by committing what was considered the ultimate religious sacrilege, consuming the penis of the dismembered god Osiris after his brother Set scattered the divine body parts throughout Egypt. This mythological transgression had serious real-world consequences that lasted for thousands of years, making the Oxyrhynchus fish permanently forbidden food throughout Egyptian society, regardless of social class or economic necessity. The fish's consumption of this crucial divine body part prevented Osiris from being completely restored to life, forcing the goddess Isis to create an artificial replacement using gold and magical power during the world's first mummification process. Egyptians viewed this act as such a serious religious violation that eating Oxyrhynchus fish was considered not just dietary restriction, but actual blasphemy that could prevent one's own resurrection in the afterlife. The comprehensive ban applied to all social classes from pharaohs to peasants and was maintained by religious authorities who considered enforcement essential for maintaining cosmic order and divine favor. This dietary restriction demonstrates how deeply mythology influenced practical daily life in ancient Egypt, where religious stories directly shaped everyday decisions about food consumption, fishing practices, and economic activities, while the prohibition persisted throughout Egyptian history, with violation of the taboo potentially resulting in social ostracism, religious punishment, or exclusion from proper burial and afterlife benefits. 62. The Divine Marketplace. Ancient Egyptian religion operated like a vast, diverse spiritual marketplace, offering worshippers more than 50 different gods and goddesses to address every conceivable human need, desire, life situation, and personal crisis that might arise during their earthly existence. This wasn't a rigid, unchanging religious system, but a dynamic, evolving spiritual framework that constantly incorporated new deities as Egyptian society developed and encountered foreign influences through trade and conquest. Local communities often worshipped regional gods completely unknown in other parts of Egypt, while national deities commanded universal recognition and reverence throughout the kingdom, creating a complex religious landscape that accommodated both local traditions and national unity. The remarkable flexibility of Egyptian religion allowed for continuous adaptation and growth, with new gods emerging to address changing social needs and incorporate deities from conquered territories. Some gods specialized in very specific functions. Taret protected pregnant women during dangerous childbirth. Khnum controlled the vital Nile flood, and Thoth governed writing and accumulated knowledge, while others like Ra and Ammonius commanded broad powers over multiple life domains. This religious diversity meant that Egyptians could always find appropriate divine assistance for any situation, whether seeking help with crop failures, military victories, romantic problems, business success, or protection from disease, while religious festivals throughout the year celebrated different deities, creating a constant cycle of worship celebration, and divine interaction that enriched Egyptian cultural life. 63. Divine symbolism decoded. Ancient Egyptian gods appeared as fantastic combinations of human and animal forms, not because Egyptians literally believed their deities actually resembled animal-headed people, but because they had developed sophisticated symbolic codes that used specific animal characteristics to represent divine personalities, powers, and spiritual attributes in ways that even illiterate worshippers could understand and remember. Each animal association carried precise meanings that functioned like spiritual hieroglyphs, conveying complex theological concepts. Hathor's cow form represented nurturing motherhood, life-giving nourishment, and gentle feminine power, while her human body symbolized divine beauty and sophisticated intelligence that guided maternal care. Anubis's jackal head connected him directly to death and mummification because jackals were commonly seen scavenging in cemeteries, making him an appropriate guardian of the dead and guide for souls transitioning to the afterlife. Thoth's ibis head linked him to wisdom and writing because these intelligent birds exhibited problem-solving behavior and had long, curved beaks resembling writing instruments used by scribes and scholars. This sophisticated symbolic system allowed artists and priests to communicate complex religious ideas through visual imagery that transcended literacy barriers and created emotional connections between worshippers and their deities. While the animal-human combinations weren't literal depictions, but religious metaphors that conveyed divine attributes and helped believers comprehend supernatural concepts through familiar earthly references. 64. The weighing of hearts. The ancient Egyptian afterlife judgment involved one of history's most psychologically sophisticated and poetically beautiful concepts: the weighing of a deceased's heart against a single feather to determine moral worthiness for eternal life based on the accumulated weight of earthly actions and intentions. This wasn't mere symbolic imagery, but represented complex understanding of how human behavior and moral choices affected spiritual development throughout life. Upon death, the deceased would stand before Osiris and a panel of 42 divine judges in the magnificent Hall of Two Truths, where their heart, considered the seat of thought, emotion, conscience, and moral character, would be carefully weighed against the feather of Maat, goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. The feather represented perfect moral balance, absolute truth, and harmonious integration with universal principles. If the deceased had lived virtuously with kindness, honesty, and respect for others, their heart would be light with positive energy and would balance perfectly against the feather, allowing immediate entry into the blessed afterlife, where they could serve the gods eternally. However, if the heart was heavy with accumulated sins, guilt, cruelty, and evil deeds, it would outweigh the delicate feather, condemning the soul to complete destruction by Ammit, a fearsome creature with a crocodile's head, lion's body, and hippopotamus hindquarters who devoured unworthy souls, making this judgment system a powerful encouragement for moral behavior throughout life. 65. Divine Romance. The epic love story between Osiris and Isis represents ancient mythology's most passionate and enduring romance, with their supernatural devotion beginning even before birth while sharing their mother's womb, and continuing through death, resurrection, and eternal reunion in the celestial realm. According to Egyptian mythology, these divine siblings fell deeply in love while still developing in Nut's womb, their souls intertwining before they ever drew their first breath in the mortal world. This prenatal romance established them as perfect cosmic partners representing the ideal union of masculine and feminine divine principles that governed all creation, love, and regeneration in the universe. Their earthly marriage combined passionate romantic love with effective political alliance as they ruled Egypt together during a legendary golden age of peace, prosperity, justice, and cultural achievement. Osiris taught humans agriculture, law, and civilized behavior, while Isis introduced medicine, magic, and the sophisticated arts of civilization, making them the ultimate divine power couple whose influence shaped human development. Their love faced the ultimate test when Set murdered Osiris out of jealous rage, forcing Isis to prove her devotion through desperate action that included searching for scattered body parts, pioneering mummification, and protecting their son Horus from supernatural enemies, while their eventual reunion in the afterlife, where Osiris ruled the underworld while Isis continued protecting the living, demonstrated how true love transcends even death itself. 66. The Divine Deception. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of death and mummification who became one of Egypt's most important and recognizable deities, owes his very existence to one of mythology's most scandalous episodes involving divine deception, forbidden desire, and magical transformation that would have serious consequences for the entire pantheon. According to the myth, Nephthys, wife of the evil god Set, became secretly infatuated with her handsome brother-in-law Osiris and devised an elaborate scheme to seduce him. Using her powerful magical abilities, Nephthys transformed her physical appearance to perfectly mimic her sister Isis, creating an illusion so complete and convincing that even the wise god Osiris couldn't detect any difference between the sisters. Disguised as his beloved wife, Nephthys successfully seduced Osiris during a moment when Isis was absent from their palace, achieving her goal of intimate union with the god she secretly loved. This divine one-night stand resulted in the conception of Anubis, making him the product of both passionate love and deliberate deception, while creating potential family scandal that could have destroyed divine relationships. When Isis discovered the affair, she could have responded with devastating fury and vengeful punishment, but instead demonstrated remarkable wisdom and compassion by adopting Anubis as her own son, raising him alongside her legitimate child Horus, and transforming a potential family disaster into a strengthening of divine bonds through forgiveness and maternal love. 67. Tears of the Goddess. The annual flooding of the Nile River, upon which all Egyptian civilization absolutely depended for survival and prosperity, was explained through one of mythology's most beautiful and emotionally resonant stories. The tears of the goddess Isis mourning her murdered husband Osiris with such profound grief that her sorrow literally transformed into the life-giving waters that sustained all of Egypt. According to this poetic explanation, Isis's overwhelming pain over Osiris's violent death was so intense and pure that her tears flowed in endless torrents. These divine tears swelled the Nile beyond its normal boundaries, causing it to overflow its banks across the fertile valley and flood the agricultural lands with life-sustaining water and nutrient-rich silt that renewed the soil and enabled crops to grow abundantly. This annual miracle transformed the goddess's personal sorrow into the very foundation of Egyptian prosperity and survival. The myth created profound connections between Egypt's most important natural phenomenon and the central religious story of death and resurrection, making the annual flood both a practical agricultural event and a sacred commemoration of divine love, loss, and renewal. Egyptians calculated their entire calendar around this flood cycle, beginning their new year when Isis's tears initiated the life-giving inundation, while the timing perfectly coincided with the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, which Egyptians associated with Isis herself, creating multiple layers of astronomical, agricultural, and religious significance that unified practical farming with spiritual devotion. 68. The colors of divinity. Osiris's distinctive green and black skin colors weren't arbitrary artistic choices made by ancient painters and sculptors, but carried profound symbolic meanings that communicated essential aspects of divine nature and cosmic function to Egyptian worshippers who understood this sophisticated visual language. The green coloration connected Osiris directly to rebirth, regeneration, and the eternal cycle of life, triumphantly emerging from death in endless renewal. Green represented the color of growing plants, fresh shoots emerging from fertile soil, and the vibrant life that appeared miraculously after the Nile's annual flood receded and revealed new agricultural possibilities. By consistently painting Osiris with green skin, artists emphasized his crucial role as the god who conquered death and achieved resurrection, promising the same spiritual renewal for his devoted followers. Black, the alternative color for Osiris's skin in different artistic representations, held equally important symbolic significance as the color of the fertile Nile mud that made Egyptian agriculture and civilization possible. When the mighty river flooded each year, it deposited rich, black silt across the fields, transforming barren, sun-baked land into productive farmland that could support millions of people, making black a color of abundance, fertility, material prosperity, and life itself. While the alternation between green and black in different artistic contexts allowed artists to emphasize different aspects of Osiris's complex divine nature, depending on the specific religious message they wanted to convey. 69. Healing through harmony. Ancient Egyptian medical practice pioneered a remarkably holistic approach to healing that combined music therapy with protective amulets. Recognizing thousands of years before modern medicine that physical health was inseparable from spiritual and emotional well-being and required therapeutic approaches that addressed multiple aspects of human nature simultaneously. This integrated treatment system acknowledged that illness affected the whole person rather than just specific body parts or isolated symptoms. Music therapy involved specially trained musician healers who performed specific songs, rhythms, and melodies believed to restore harmony between the patient's body, mind, and spirit through therapeutic sound vibrations. Different musical modes were systematically prescribed for different medical conditions. Soothing heart melodies for anxiety and depression, rhythmic drumming for digestive disorders, and ceremonial chants for serious illnesses requiring divine intervention and supernatural healing. The therapeutic music often incorporated religious hymns and magical spells, blending entertainment with spiritual healing in ways that comforted patients while invoking divine assistance for recovery and protection. Amulets served as portable protection and continuous healing aids, carefully crafted from specific materials and inscribed with protective spells tailored to individual patients' particular needs and medical conditions, while popular healing amulets included the Ankh symbol for life force, the Eye of Horus for protection and healing, and representations of healing deities like Tarit and Bes, who specialized in medical intervention and supernatural cure. 70. The Great Decoding Challenge. When European scholars first examined the mysterious Rosetta Stone in 1799, their confident optimism about quickly deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs proved spectacularly and embarrassingly wrong, as what they boldly predicted would be accomplished in 2 weeks actually required 2 full decades of brilliant intellectual effort, international collaboration, and revolutionary breakthroughs in linguistic methodology. This massive underestimation revealed how little Europeans understood about the complexity of ancient writing systems. The stone's trilingual inscription initially seemed to offer a simple, straightforward translation key. Scholars naively assumed they could easily match the known Greek text with corresponding Egyptian words and quickly crack the entire hieroglyphic code through basic comparison and substitution. However, they soon discovered that hieroglyphic writing was far more sophisticated than simple alphabetic systems, combining phonetic elements representing sounds with ideographic symbols representing concepts and determinative signs that clarified meaning. The decipherment process required not just advanced linguistic skills, but deep cultural knowledge about ancient Egyptian religion, politics, daily life, and social customs to understand the context and subtle nuances of the ancient texts. Multiple brilliant scholars across Europe worked collaboratively on the seemingly impossible problem, sharing discoveries and building upon each other's breakthroughs in a sustained intellectual effort that lasted from 1799 to 1822, while Jean-François Champollion's final breakthrough came only after mastering Coptic, studying hundreds of other Egyptian texts, and developing entirely new methodologies for approaching unknown writing systems. 71. 3 scripts, 1 message. The Rosetta Stone's revolutionary importance lay in its miraculous preservation of the same governmental decree written in 3 completely different scripts. Hieroglyphic Egyptian, Demotic Egyptian, and Ancient Greek, creating an ancient translation key that finally unlocked the mysteries of Egyptian writing after centuries of scholarly frustration and failed attempt at decipherment. This trilingual approach wasn't unusual for Ptolemaic Egypt, where Greek rulers needed effective communication with Egyptian subjects who used different writing systems for various purposes. The formal hieroglyphic text served religious and ceremonial purposes, used primarily by educated priests and traditional elites who maintained ancient Egyptian cultural practices and religious knowledge. Demotic script represented the practical, everyday writing system used by ordinary Egyptians for business transactions, personal correspondence, and administrative documents, making it the most common form of written communication. Ancient Greek served as the official administrative language of the Ptolemaic government, used for royal decrees, diplomatic correspondence, and legal documents that required international recognition and understanding. The decree itself, issued by Egyptian priests in 196 BCE, praised King Ptolemy V in order that copies be distributed to temples throughout Egypt in all three scripts to ensure universal comprehension across different linguistic and cultural communities. While this linguistic redundancy proved providential for modern scholars by providing multiple pathways for understanding the same content and allowing them to identify crucial patterns and correspondences between different ancient writing systems. 72. The weight of knowledge. The Rosetta Stone commands respect not only for its extraordinary intellectual significance in unlocking ancient Egyptian civilization, but also for its impressive physical presence. Weighing approximately 760 kilograms, 1,680 pounds, and standing 1123 centimeters high. A monument substantial and durable enough to survive over 2 millennia of historical upheavals, wars, and environmental challenges. This massive weight reflects ancient Egyptian preferences for creating permanent records in the most durable materials available. The stone's granodiorite composition, harder than granite and extremely resistant to weathering, erosion, and physical damage, was specifically chosen for monuments intended to preserve important information forever and communicate governmental authority across generations. Its substantial dimensions and impressive weight made it expensive and technically challenging to create, reflecting the high importance of the decree it preserved. The stone's considerable mass also contributed significantly to its remarkable survival through various historical periods when smaller, more portable artifacts were often stolen by treasure hunters, destroyed by conquering armies, or repurposed for other construction projects. Its extraordinary weight made it completely impractical for grave robbers or casual looters to remove, leaving it to be incorporated into later building projects where it remained relatively protected from destruction, while when French soldiers discovered it in 1799, its substantial size immediately indicated its potential importance and ensured it received proper archaeological attention rather than being discarded as mere construction material. 73. Napoleon's archaeological legacy. The discovery of the Rosetta Stone emerged from one of history's most unusual and ambitious military campaigns, when Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt in 1798 combined traditional territorial conquest with unprecedented intellectual exploration that would revolutionize European understanding of ancient civilizations and establish modern archaeological methods. Napoleon brought not only seasoned soldiers and military equipment, but also prominent scholars, scientists, and artists tasked with documenting Egyptian culture. French military engineers constructing defensive fortifications near the town of Rashid, Rosetta, in July 1799 uncovered the inscribed stone while digging foundations for Fort Julian, accidentally transforming a routine military construction project into one of archaeology's most important and influential discoveries. The soldier who found it, Pierre-François Bouchard, immediately recognized the stone's potential significance and properly reported it to his commanding officers. This remarkable discovery exemplified Napoleon's broader strategic vision of combining military conquest with scientific exploration, establishing important precedents for archaeological research that continued long after French military ambitions in Egypt failed completely. The scholarly expedition produced the monumental Description de l'Égypte, a comprehensive survey of Egyptian antiquities, natural history, and contemporary culture that introduced European audiences to the wonders of ancient Egyptian civilization, while Napoleon's cultural mission ultimately proved far more successful and enduring than his military objectives. As the knowledge gained transformed European understanding of ancient history and established Egyptology as a legitimate scientific discipline. 74. The Moment of Triumph. September 14, 1822, marked one of history's most dramatic and theatrical intellectual breakthroughs when Jean-François Champollion burst into his brother's Paris office, shouted, "I've done it," and promptly collapsed into unconsciousness for 5 consecutive days, completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of his achievement in finally cracking the hieroglyphic code that had puzzled scholars for over 2 decades. This intensely dramatic moment perfectly suited Champollion's passionate and obsessive personality. Champollion's breakthrough came when he realized that the hieroglyphic sign he believed represented M was used on the Rosetta Stone in contexts where the Greek text discussed birthdays, suggesting that this sign also spelled out the word for birth, which in Coptic was mice. This crucial insight finally provided the key to understanding that hieroglyphs represented actual Egyptian language sounds rather than just symbolic pictures. The discovery represented the culmination of over 20 years of international scholarly effort and personal obsession with ancient Egyptian writing, involving countless hours of comparing texts, studying Coptic language, and developing new methodological approaches to deciphering unknown scripts. Champollion's dramatic collapse reflected both physical exhaustion from intense intellectual effort and emotional overwhelm at realizing he had accomplished what many considered impossible, while his 5-day unconsciousness became legendary among scholars as the ultimate example of intellectual breakthrough causing physical reaction. And when he finally recovered, Champollion had become the first person in over a millennium to read the words of ancient Egyptian pharaohs in their original language. 75. The Last Hieroglyphic Text. On August 24, 394 AD, an unknown priest carved the final hieroglyphic inscription that would ever be written in ancient Egyptian history, marking the end of a 3,500-year-old writing tradition with a simple graffito at the Temple of Philae. This last inscription, known as the Graffito of Esmatacum, represents a civilization's final whisper in its own ancient voice. The priest who carved these last hieroglyphs could never have imagined that he was closing a chapter on one of humanity's longest-running writing traditions, or that his simple temple inscription would become historically significant as the end of an era. By this time, few Egyptians could still read the complex hieroglyphic script that had once covered every temple wall and royal monument throughout the kingdom. The fall of traditional Egyptian religion, the rise of Christianity, and the spread of Greek and Latin languages had gradually made hieroglyphic writing obsolete and irrelevant to daily life. Temple priesthoods that had preserved this knowledge for millennia were dying out, taking their ancient wisdom with them into silence, while the last Demotic text would follow 58 years later in 452 AD, completely ending the Egyptian written tradition and leaving these ancient scripts as mysterious as they would remain for over 1,000 years until the Rosetta Stone finally unlocked their secrets. 76. Cartouche royal names. The oval figures called cartouches that appear throughout Egyptian hieroglyphic inscriptions held one of the most important keys to deciphering ancient Egyptian writing. They contained the phonetic spellings of royal names that proved hieroglyphs weren't just symbolic pictures, but actual representations of spoken Egyptian language. These distinctive oval loops with horizontal lines at one end literally meant rope in French, named by Napoleon scholars who thought they resembled rope loops. British scholar Thomas Young made the crucial breakthrough in 1814 when he correctly identified a cartouche on the Rosetta Stone as containing the name of King Ptolemy by finding the corresponding Greek name in the parallel text. This discovery revolutionized understanding of Egyptian writing by proving that at least some hieroglyphs represented sounds rather than just concepts or symbolic meanings. Young's insight gave Champollion and other scholars the phonetic values for several important hieroglyphic signs, the sounds for P, T, O, L, E, M, and Y, creating the foundation for further decipherment work. The discovery that cartouches contained royal names also explained why these oval enclosures appeared so frequently in temple inscriptions and royal monuments, as they marked every mention of pharaohs' names with special protective symbols that ensured royal identity would be clearly recognized and properly honored throughout eternity. 77. 3 writing systems. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs represented one of history's most sophisticated and complex writing systems, functioning as a remarkable hybrid that combined 3 completely different types of written communication in a single, integrated script that could express any thought or concept with precision and beauty. This wasn't a simple alphabet like modern English, but a multifaceted system that required extensive education and cultural knowledge to master completely. Some hieroglyphic signs were purely phonetic, representing specific sounds or combinations of sounds exactly like letters in modern alphabets, allowing scribes to spell out words phonetically. Other signs were pictographic, providing literal pictures of the objects or concepts they represented, like a drawing of a bird meaning bird or a sun disk meaning sun. Still, other hieroglyphs functioned as ideographic symbols, representing abstract concepts, ideas, or categories that couldn't be easily drawn, such as concepts like divine, eternal, or powerful. The system also included determinative signs that appeared at the ends of words to clarify meaning and eliminate ambiguity, similar to punctuation marks that help readers understand how to interpret written text. While this sophisticated combination of phonetic, pictographic, and ideographic elements allowed Egyptian scribes to express complex ideas, religious concepts, historical narratives, and administrative records with remarkable precision and artistic beauty. 78. 3100 BCE origins. The hieroglyphic writing system emerged around 3100 BCE and remained in continuous use for over 3,000 years, making it one of humanity's longest-lasting and most enduring written traditions that witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations while maintaining remarkable consistency and cultural continuity. This extraordinary longevity speaks to both the system's effectiveness and the stability of Egyptian civilization itself. The earliest hieroglyphic inscriptions appeared during the same period when Egypt was first unified under pharaonic rule, suggesting that written communication and centralized government developed together as complementary technologies for managing complex society. These ancient scripts evolved from simple pictographic symbols into the sophisticated system that could record everything from royal decrees to love poems. During its 3-millennium lifespan, hieroglyphic writing recorded the entire span of pharaonic civilization, the construction of pyramids, military conquests, religious reforms, diplomatic treaties, and daily life experiences of millions of people. The script survived multiple foreign invasions, political upheavals, and cultural changes, adapting to new circumstances while maintaining its essential character and sacred associations. While its remarkable endurance demonstrates the deep cultural importance Egyptians placed on written communication, religious expression, and historical record-keeping that preserved their civilization's memory across countless generations until the ancient traditions finally ended in the late Roman period. 79. 65 million ton weight. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a monument to human ambition so massive that it weighs approximately 65 million tons. Imagine the weight of 65,000 blue whales or 43 million average automobiles all stacked into a single, precisely engineered geometric structure that has defied time, earthquakes, and human interference for over 4,500 years. This staggering mass represents one of the largest human-made objects ever constructed in the ancient world. The pyramid's enormous weight is distributed across its 13-acre base, with such engineering precision that the structure has remained stable through millennia of seismic activity, temperature fluctuations, and the gradual settling of its foundation into the Giza bedrock. Each of the 23 million stone blocks contributes to this massive total, with the largest interior stones weighing up to 80 tons each. The engineering challenge of supporting this immense weight required sophisticated understanding of physics, geology, and structural engineering that rivals modern construction techniques in its effectiveness and longevity. Ancient builders had to calculate load distribution, foundation requirements, and structural stability without modern mathematical tools or computer modeling, yet they created a monument so well-engineered that it has outlasted virtually every other ancient structure and continues to inspire awe in engineers, architects, and visitors who struggle to comprehend how such massive weight was assembled with primitive tools and human power alone. 80, world's tallest for 3,800 years. At its original height of 1,466 meters, 481 feet, the Great Pyramid held the distinction of being the world's tallest human-made structure for an astounding 3,800 years, maintaining this record from approximately 2,580 BCE until the completion of Lincoln Cathedral in England around 1311 CE, a span of time longer than recorded Christian history. This extraordinary achievement in ancient engineering remained unmatched through the rise and fall of entire civilizations. For nearly 4 millennia, travelers approaching the Giza Plateau would have gazed upward at humanity's greatest architectural achievement, a monument that soared higher than any other human creation on Earth. The pyramid dominated not just the Egyptian landscape, but the imagination of every civilization that encountered it, from ancient Greeks and Romans to medieval Islamic scholars. The structure's height supremacy endured through the construction of the Colosseum, the building of Constantinople, the Viking explorations, the Crusades, and the early years of medieval European cathedral construction before finally being surpassed. During its record-holding millennia, the pyramids serve as a constant reminder of ancient Egyptian engineering capabilities and ambition, while its eventual dethroning by a Gothic cathedral marked the symbolic transition from ancient to medieval architectural achievement. Though the pyramid's imposing presence continues to inspire awe and wonder in modern visitors who can barely comprehend the audacity of ancient builders who dared to reach so close to the heavens. 81. Wooden wedge stone cutting. Ancient Egyptian stonemasons developed an ingenious and surprisingly effective method for cutting massive blocks from solid rock quarries, using nothing more than wooden wedges, copper tools, and the natural expansion properties of water that transformed ordinary wood into a powerful stone-splitting force. This technique allowed workers to extract precisely shaped blocks weighing many tons from granite, limestone, and sandstone quarries without explosives or modern machinery. The process began with skilled workers using copper chisels and hammers to carefully carve narrow grooves into natural stone faces, following predetermined lines that would create blocks of the desired size and shape. These grooves had to be perfectly aligned and deep enough to accommodate the wooden wedges that would complete the cutting process. Once the grooves were prepared, workers inserted specially prepared wooden wedges tightly into each channel, then systematically soaked the wedges with water carried in pottery vessels from nearby sources. As the water was absorbed, the wooden wedges expanded with tremendous force, creating pressure that gradually split the stone along the predetermined lines with surprising precision and control. This remarkable technique required patience, skill, and careful timing, but it allowed ancient Egyptian workers to extract enormous building blocks with clean, straight cuts that fit together perfectly in finished construction projects. The method demonstrates how ancient peoples could achieve seemingly impossible results through careful observation of natural properties and creative application of simple materials that were readily available in their environment. 82. Water transportation system. Ancient Egyptian logistics specialists developed a sophisticated water transportation network that solved the seemingly impossible challenge of moving millions of massive stone blocks from distant quarries to pyramid construction sites across hundreds of miles of challenging terrain. This system relied on the Nile River and an ingenious network of artificial canals that brought construction materials directly to building sites with remarkable efficiency. The transportation process began at quarries where finished stone blocks were carefully loaded onto specially constructed barges designed to carry enormous weights without sinking or becoming unstable in river currents. These vessels had to be engineered to handle cargo that could weigh as much as modern shipping containers while navigating the unpredictable waters of the ancient Nile. From the main river, workers guided the loaded barges into artificial canals and waterways that had been specially excavated to reach pyramid sites, allowing materials to be delivered within walking distance of construction areas. Some evidence suggests that seasonal flooding was used to temporarily extend these waterways even closer to building sites during optimal construction periods. This water-based transportation system revolutionized construction logistics and made pyramid building economically feasible by dramatically reducing the human effort required to move materials across long distances. The network represented a massive infrastructure investment that supported not only pyramid construction, but also the broader Egyptian economy through improved transportation capabilities that facilitated trade, communication, and resource distribution throughout the kingdom for centuries after the pyramid building era ended. 83. Mysterious Bent Pyramid. The Bent Pyramid stands as one of ancient Egypt's most puzzling monuments, famous for its dramatic mid-construction design change that altered the pyramid's angle from 54 degrees to 43 degrees partway through building, creating a distinctive bent appearance that has mystified archaeologists and engineers for generations. This unique structure represents either an ancient engineering disaster or a brilliant adaptation to unforeseen circumstances. Construction began normally with a steep 54-degree angle that would have created a pyramid similar in proportion to other Old Kingdom monuments. But something went dramatically wrong during the building process that forced ancient engineers to make major modifications to their original plans. Some scholars believe the builders realized the steep angle was structurally unsound and would lead to collapse under the pyramid's immense weight. Others suggest that mathematical calculations revealed the steep angle would require more stone blocks than were available, forcing builders to reduce the pyramid's final height to complete construction within budget and schedule constraints. The most intriguing theory proposes that the pyramid was deliberately designed with gaps between stone blocks to allow for thermal expansion and contraction. Ironically, this unconventional construction technique made the bent pyramid the best-preserved pyramid in Egypt, as the small gaps between blocks allowed for natural movement without causing the structural failures that affected other pyramids. This accidental success demonstrates how ancient builders learned through experimentation and adapted their techniques based on practical experience, sometimes achieving better results through apparent imperfection than through rigid adherence to theoretical ideals. 84. Step Pyramid Innovation. The world's first pyramid emerged around 4,600 years ago as a revolutionary architectural innovation that forever changed human construction capabilities and established the foundation for all future pyramid building throughout Egyptian history. The Step Pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, designed by the brilliant architect Imhotep, represented humanity's first successful attempt to build a massive stone structure that reached toward the heavens with unprecedented ambition. Before this groundbreaking achievement, Egyptian royal tombs were simple rectangular structures called mastabas that barely rose above ground level, providing adequate burial space but lacking the dramatic visual impact that would befit divine kingship. Imhotep's genius lay in stacking 6 progressively smaller mastabas on top of each other, creating a step tower that soared 62 meters into the sky. This innovative design solved multiple engineering challenges while creating an entirely new architectural vocabulary that emphasized verticality, geometric precision, and monumental scale that dwarfed previous human constructions. The Step Pyramid established the connection between pyramid building and divine kingship, royal immortality, and cosmic significance that would influence Egyptian architecture for millennia. The successful completion of this experimental structure proved that massive stone construction was possible and practical, encouraging future pharaohs to attempt even more ambitious building projects that would culminate in the smooth-sided pyramids at Giza. Imhotep's architectural revolution established principles of monumental stone construction, precise geometric planning, and symbolic royal architecture that influenced building traditions throughout the ancient world and established Egypt's reputation for extraordinary engineering capabilities. 85. Pyramid alignment theory. One of the most intriguing and controversial theories about the Giza pyramids suggests that their ground plan perfectly mirrors the arrangement of stars in Orion's Belt constellation, indicating that ancient Egyptian architects deliberately aligned these massive monuments with celestial patterns that held deep religious and astronomical significance. This theory, known as the Orion correlation theory, proposes that the pyramids were positioned as earthly representations of cosmic order. The theory notes that the three main pyramids, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, are arranged in a pattern that closely matches the three stars of Orion's Belt as they appeared in the ancient Egyptian sky around 2500 BCE. The offset position of the smallest pyramid corresponds to the dimmer star Mintaka, while the alignment of all three structures matches the celestial arrangement with remarkable precision. Ancient Egyptians strongly associated Orion with Osiris, god of the dead and ruler of the afterlife, making this constellation extremely important in their religious beliefs about death, resurrection, and eternal life. Building pyramids to mirror Orion's pattern would have created a cosmic connection between earthly royal tombs and the celestial realm where pharaohs expected to spend eternity. However, the theory remains highly debated among scholars, with critics arguing that the correlations are coincidental and that ancient texts don't explicitly support intentional stellar alignment. Supporters counter that the precision of the alignment exceeds reasonable coincidence and reflects sophisticated astronomical knowledge that ancient Egyptians demonstrably possessed, while the ongoing debate highlights the continuing mysteries surrounding these ancient monuments and the ambitious scope of Egyptian architectural and religious thinking. 86. Simple interior design. Contrary to popular imagination fueled by Hollywood movies and adventure novels depicting pyramids as elaborate labyrinths filled with treasure chambers, secret passages, and intricate booby traps, the interior spaces of Egyptian pyramids were surprisingly simple and austere. Just a few essential passageways leading to burial chambers surrounded by enormous amounts of solid stone masonry. This architectural simplicity reflected the pyramid's primary function as eternal tombs rather than accessible buildings. The Great Pyramid's interior consists of only three main chambers connected by narrow, cramped passageways that require visitors to crawl or walk in awkward, bent positions due to the low ceiling heights and steep angles. The most impressive interior feature is the Grand Gallery, a long, narrow corridor with an unusually high ceiling that leads to the king's chamber, but even this dramatic space serves a purely functional purpose. The pyramids were designed to be permanently sealed after the pharaoh's burial, with massive stone blocks intended to prevent any future access to the interior chambers and protect the royal mummy from grave robbers and tomb violations. The builders never intended these spaces to be visited or explored by the living, focusing instead on creating impenetrable fortresses for the dead. This interior simplicity emphasizes the pyramid's spiritual rather than practical function as eternal resting places where pharaohs could undergo resurrection and transformation into divine beings. The vast majority of each pyramid's volume consists of solid stone blocks that serve purely structural purposes, creating monuments whose primary purpose was external, to announce royal power and divine kingship to the world, while protecting the sacred burial chambers hidden deep within their massive cores. 87. Cat Goddess Temple. Buried beneath the bustling streets of modern Alexandria, archaeologists discovered a remarkable 2,200-year-old temple dedicated to Batet, the beloved cat goddess, containing an astonishing collection of 600 cat statues that reveals the incredible devotion ancient Egyptians felt toward their feline companions. This underground sanctuary was built by Queen Berenice II, wife of Ptolemy III, during a period when Greek and Egyptian religious traditions were blending into new forms of worship. The temple's discovery provides fascinating insights into how deeply cats were integrated into Egyptian religious life. Even during the Ptolemaic period when Greek rulers governed Egypt and might have been expected to emphasize their own cultural traditions. Instead, the temple shows how profoundly Egyptian cat worship influenced even foreign rulers who recognized the importance of honoring local religious beliefs. Each statue in the temple was carefully crafted and positioned, representing individual cats that have been beloved pets, sacred temple animals, or symbolic representations of Bastet's divine power and protection. The sheer number of statues indicates that cat worship remained extremely popular among both Egyptian natives and Greek immigrants who had adopted local religious practices. Cats were revered in ancient Egypt not just as helpful pest control animals, but as sacred beings with supernatural powers who could protect homes from evil spirits and disease. The temple complex demonstrates how cat veneration continued even under foreign rule, with wealthy families commissioning statues of their deceased pets to ensure the animals would continue serving and protecting their families in the afterlife, while maintaining eternal connections between the human and divine realms through feline intermediaries. Optzich shi opt, mumified cat collections. Archaeological excavations throughout Egypt have uncovered vast collections of mummified cats numbering in the hundreds of thousands, each carefully preserved and wrapped in linen bandages with the same reverence shown to human mummies, demonstrating the extraordinary religious significance of felines in ancient Egyptian society. These preserved cats weren't merely beloved pets, but served as religious offerings and spiritual intermediaries between the human and divine worlds. The mummification process for cats involved the same basic techniques used for humans: removal of internal organs, drying with natron salt, and careful wrapping in linen bandages often decorated with painted designs or hieroglyphic inscriptions. Some cat mummies were placed in elaborate sarcophagi made from wood, stone, or metal and decorated with religious symbols and protective spells. Many cat mummies were created specifically as religious offerings that wealthy Egyptians could purchase at temples and present to Bastet as gifts intended to gain divine favor, heal illnesses, or ensure protection for their families. Temples maintained large catteras where sacred cats lived comfortable lives before being mummified and offered to the goddess, creating a thriving religious economy centered around feline worship. The discovery of enormous cat cemeteries containing hundreds of thousands of mummified felines reveals the industrial scale of this religious practice and its central importance in Egyptian spiritual life. These cat mummies represent one of the largest animal mummification industries in the ancient world, demonstrating how deeply Egyptian religious beliefs influenced economic activities and creating lasting archaeological evidence of the special relationship between ancient Egyptians and their sacred cats. 89. Falcon Shrine Mystery. In the ancient Egyptian port city of Berenik on the Red Sea coast, archaeologists uncovered one of the most puzzling and macabre discoveries in Egyptian religious archaeology: a 1,700-year-old falcon shrine containing 15 carefully decapitated falcons arranged with ceremonial precision alongside a cryptic inscription that reads, "It is improper to boil heads here." This mysterious message has baffled researchers who struggle to understand its meaning and purpose. The headless falcons were discovered arranged in specific patterns within the shrine, suggesting they were part of elaborate religious ceremonies rather than random animal sacrifice or casual disposal of unwanted birds. Falcons held special significance in Egyptian religion as sacred animals associated with Horus, one of the most important gods in the Egyptian pantheon. The warning inscription about boiling heads implies that this practice occurred elsewhere in the religious complex, perhaps as part of preparation rituals for these sacred birds before their ceremonial placement in shrine. The specific prohibitions suggest there were strict religious protocols governing how these animals could be treated and processed during religious ceremonies. The discovery raises intriguing questions about Egyptian religious practices during the Roman period, when traditional Egyptian beliefs were blending with Roman customs and early Christian influences to create new forms of religious expression. The Falcon Shrine represents the continuation of ancient Egyptian animal worship despite foreign political control, while the mysterious inscription hints at complex religious procedures that we may never fully understand, leaving this ancient warning as an enigmatic message from the past about forgotten rituals and sacred practices. 90. Buddha figurine in Egypt. Among the countless archaeological discoveries that have emerged from Egyptian tombs and ancient sites, perhaps none is more unexpected and culturally intriguing than the Buddha figurine that was found among traditional Egyptian artifacts, representing a remarkable example of ancient cultural exchange and international religious influence that challenges assumptions about ancient isolationism. This small but significant object demonstrates how extensively ancient civilizations interacted across vast distances. The presence of a Buddha figurine in Egypt reflects the complex trade networks and cultural exchanges that connected ancient civilizations across Asia, Africa, and the Mediterranean, allowing religious ideas, artistic styles, and cultural practices to spread far beyond their origins. Buddhist art and philosophy traveled along trade routes that linked India, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean world. This discovery suggests that some ancient Egyptians were familiar with Buddhist religious concepts and artistic traditions, either through direct contact with Buddhist merchants and travelers or through the acquisition of Buddhist objects as exotic trade goods valued for their artistic merit and foreign origin. The figurine represents the meeting of two great spiritual traditions in the ancient world. The Buddha figurine in Egypt also reflects the cosmopolitan nature of late ancient Egyptian society, where Greek, Roman, Egyptian, and other cultural influences blended to create a diverse, multicultural environment that was open to new ideas and foreign influences. This small artifact serves as a tangible reminder that ancient peoples were far more internationally connected and culturally curious than we often imagine, creating networks of exchange that spread religious ideas, artistic techniques, and philosophical concepts across continents long before modern globalization. 91. Golden mummy wrapping. When archaeologists carefully unwrapped the mummy of Hekhasheps in 2023, they discovered something that took their breath away. His entire body was encased in sheets of gleaming gold foil, representing an extraordinarily expensive burial practice, so rare that it was reserved for only the most elite members of ancient Egyptian society. This golden mummy represents one of the most spectacular examples of ancient Egyptian burial luxury ever discovered. Gold wrapping was far more costly and symbolically significant than traditional linen bandages, as gold was considered the divine flesh of the gods themselves, making this burial practice a literal transformation of the deceased into divine form. The amount of gold required for complete body wrapping represented a fortune that could have supported hundreds of ordinary families for years, indicating Hekhasheps' extraordinary wealth and social importance. The preservation achieved through gold wrapping exceeded even the best traditional mummification techniques, as the precious metal created an impermeable barrier that protected the body from moisture, bacteria, and decay more effectively than any other ancient preservation method. The golden shroud essentially created a divine cocoon designed to ensure perfect preservation for eternity. This remarkable burial practice demonstrates the lengths to which ancient Egyptian elite would go to ensure resurrection and divine transformation in the afterlife, viewing the enormous expense as a necessary investment in eternal life and divine status. Hekhasheps' golden burial provides unprecedented insights into the most exclusive burial practices of ancient Egypt and represents a unique archaeological treasure that combines historical significance with intrinsic material value, making it one of the most important mummy discoveries of the modern era. 92. Mysterious city discovery. In April 2021, archaeologists made what was immediately hailed as the most significant archaeological discovery in Egypt in the past century: the unearthing of a 3,000-year-old lost golden city known as Rise of Aten that had been completely buried under sand for millennia. This sprawling urban complex, dating to the reign of Amenhotep III, represents the largest ancient city ever discovered in Egypt and provides unprecedented insights into daily life during Egypt's Golden Age. The remarkably well-preserved city emerged from the sand like a time capsule, with mud brick structures, streets, workshops, and residential districts still intact after 3,000 years of burial. Archaeologists found bakeries with ovens still containing bread loaves, pottery workshops with ceramic vessels ready for firing, and residential areas with personal belongings scattered exactly where they were left by ancient inhabitants. The city's preservation is so extraordinary that archaeologists can walk through ancient streets and enter buildings that appear as if their occupants just stepped out for a brief errand, creating an almost supernatural connection with the distant past. Jewelry, pottery, scarab seals, and everyday objects provide intimate glimpses into how ordinary Egyptians lived, worked, and interacted during one of Egypt's most prosperous periods. The discovery includes administrative areas, industrial districts, and what appears to be a palace complex, offering comprehensive insights into ancient Egyptian urban planning, economic organization, and social structure. This lost city represents an archaeological goldmine that will require decades of careful excavation and study to fully understand, while its discovery demonstrates that Egypt still holds countless secrets buried beneath its sands, waiting to revolutionize our understanding of this ancient civilization. 93. Dried meat vessels. Among the fascinating artifacts discovered in ancient Egyptian tombs, archaeologists have found pottery vessels containing what they believe was once boiled or dried meat, carefully preserved and prepared for the deceased's nourishment during their eternal journey through the afterlife. These food offerings represent the practical care with which ancient Egyptians prepared their loved ones for the challenges of death and resurrection, ensuring they would not go hungry in the celestial realm. The meat preservation process required sophisticated food preparation techniques that could create edible provisions capable of lasting for eternity without spoilage or decay. Ancient Egyptian cooks likely used salt curing, smoking, or dehydration methods to create protein sources that could be safely stored in sealed containers for indefinite periods, similar to modern jerky or preserved meats. These dried meat offerings were typically placed alongside other food provisions including bread loaves, grain, fruits, and beer, creating complete meal sets that would sustain the deceased through their afterlife journey and provide familiar comfort foods in the strange new world of death. The variety and quality of food offerings often reflected the social status and wealth of the deceased and their families. The discovery of preserved meat in tombs demonstrates the deeply practical nature of Egyptian afterlife beliefs. They genuinely expected the dead to need physical sustenance and took concrete steps to provide it. These food offerings reveal touching human concern for deceased family members and friends, showing how ancient Egyptians extended their care and love beyond death through thoughtful preparation of provisions that would ensure their loved ones' comfort and well-being throughout eternity in the divine realm. 94. Breath of life theory. Ancient Egyptian physicians developed a remarkably sophisticated understanding of anatomy and physiology that included the belief that the breath of life entered the human body through the right ear, while the breath of death entered through the left ear, creating a cosmic balance that determined an individual's health, longevity, and spiritual condition. This theory demonstrates how ancient Egyptians connected physical anatomy with spiritual and cosmic forces in their medical practice. This ear-based theory of life force was part of a comprehensive medical system that recognized the body as a complex network of channels and vessels through which various forms of divine energy flowed to maintain health and vitality. Egyptian doctors believed that maintaining proper balance between these opposing forces was essential for preventing disease and ensuring long life. The concept influenced medical treatments and protective practices, with physicians and priests developing specific techniques for enhancing positive life energy while blocking harmful death energy, from entering the body through vulnerable entry points. Amulets and protective spells often focused on safeguarding the ears from malevolent influences that could disrupt the cosmic balance. This ancient medical theory also influenced Egyptian beliefs about communication with divine beings, as the ears were seen as primary channels through which gods could speak to humans and humans could receive divine guidance and protection. The theory reflects the sophisticated way ancient Egyptians integrated spiritual beliefs with practical medical knowledge, creating healthcare systems that addressed both physical symptoms and supernatural causes of illness, while recognizing the body as a sacred vessel for divine energy and cosmic forces. 95. Eye disease treatment. Ancient Egyptian physicians developed detailed theories about eye diseases that attributed all vision problems to four specific vessels in the forehead that supplied blood to the eyes, demonstrating their systematic approach to understanding anatomical connections and disease causation even without modern knowledge of circulation, infection, or optical science. This theory guided their development of targeted treatments for various eye conditions that plagued ancient populations. According to Egyptian medical understanding, these four forehead vessels could become blocked, damaged, or contaminated, leading to various eye problems including blindness, infections, cataracts, and other vision difficulties that were common in Egypt's dusty, sandy environment. Physicians developed specific treatments designed to clear blockages and restore proper blood flow to maintain healthy vision. Egyptian eye treatments included medicinal preparations made from honey, anemone, and various plant extracts that were applied directly to the eyes or surrounding areas to reduce inflammation, fight infection, and improve vision. Many of these treatments have been confirmed by modern medicine to have genuine therapeutic properties, particularly the use of honey as an antibacterial agent. The sophisticated understanding of eye anatomy and disease reflects the advanced state of Egyptian medical knowledge and their careful observation of how different treatments affected patient outcomes. Egyptian eye doctors achieved sufficient success to earn international recognition, with foreign rulers specifically requesting Egyptian physicians to treat serious eye conditions, while the detailed medical papyri that preserve these eye treatment protocols continue to provide insights into ancient medical practice and the development of ophthalmology as a specialized medical field. 96. Malachite eye paint. Around 4000 BCE, ancient Egyptians began using malachite, a vibrant green copper carbonate mineral, as both eye paint and medical treatment, creating one of the earliest examples of cosmetics that serve both aesthetic and therapeutic purposes in human history. This dual-function approach to beauty and health demonstrates the sophisticated understanding ancient Egyptians had of materials that could enhance appearance while providing genuine medical benefits. Malachite eye paint, known as aju in ancient Egyptian, was ground in a fine powder and mixed with animal fats or plant oils to create smooth, spreadable cosmetics that could be applied around the eyes with ivory or wooden applicators. The striking green color enhanced natural eye beauty and created dramatic, attractive appearances that became hallmarks of Egyptian fashion and cultural identity. Beyond its cosmetic appeal, malachite possessed genuine antibacterial properties that help prevent eye infections, reduce inflammation, and protect against the eye diseases that were common in Egypt's dusty, sandy environment where wind-blown particles constantly threatened vision and eye health. The copper content in malachite acted as a natural antimicrobial agent that killed harmful bacteria and fungi. Both men and women of all social classes wore malachite eye paint, making it one of the most universal and democratic cosmetic practices in ancient Egypt. While the practice influenced beauty standards throughout the ancient Mediterranean world as Egyptian cultural influence spread through trade and diplomatic contact. The use of malachite eye paint continued for thousands of years, establishing makeup traditions that influenced cosmetic practices in Greece, Rome, and other civilizations that recognized both the beauty and practical benefits of this remarkable ancient Egyptian innovation. 97. Contraceptive methods. Ancient Egyptian physicians developed surprisingly sophisticated contraceptive techniques that included injecting mixtures of honey and natron salt into women's intimate areas to prevent unwanted pregnancies, representing some of humanity's earliest systematic attempts at birth control through medical intervention rather than relying solely on timing or luck. This practice demonstrates advanced understanding of human reproduction and practical approaches to family planning. The honey and natron mixture worked through multiple mechanisms. The thick, sticky consistency created physical barriers that could block sperm, while the alkaline properties of natron altered the chemical environment in ways that reduced fertility and conception probability. Modern medical research has confirmed that these ancient contraceptive methods had genuine effectiveness, though obviously not comparable to modern birth control. Egyptian medical papyri describe various other contraceptive techniques, including pessaries made from crocodile dung, plant-based preparations, and timing methods that show systematic observation of female reproductive cycles and understanding of when conception was most and least likely to occur. These methods were documented and taught by medical practitioners, indicating organized approaches to reproductive health. The development of contraceptive techniques reflects the practical realities of ancient Egyptian family life, where large numbers of children could strain family resources and endanger maternal health in an era of high infant mortality and dangerous childbirth conditions. Egyptian contraceptive knowledge influenced medical practice throughout the ancient world and established principles of reproductive choice and family planning that represented remarkable advances in women's health care and personal autonomy in societies where women often had limited control over their reproductive lives. 98. Coptic language bridge. Jean-François Champollion's breakthrough in deciphering hieroglyphic writing came partly through his mastery of Coptic, the late form of the ancient Egyptian language that had survived into modern times and provided the crucial linguistic key that unlocked the meanings of ancient Egyptian words and grammatical structures. Coptic represented the direct descendant of the language spoken by pyramid builders, pharaohs, and ancient Egyptian priests, preserved through centuries of Christian use in Egypt. Coptic developed when ancient Egyptian language adopted the Greek alphabet plus additional letters to represent sounds that didn't exist in Greek, creating a writing system that preserved Egyptian vocabulary and grammar while using familiar alphabetic script. This linguistic evolution meant that Coptic contained thousands of words that were virtually identical to their ancient Egyptian counterparts, despite thousands of years of linguistic change. When Champollion recognized that some hieroglyphic signs spelled out words that were still used in Coptic, he gained access to the actual meanings and pronunciations of ancient Egyptian vocabulary that had been preserved in living language rather than just written symbols. This linguistic connection allowed him to understand hieroglyphic texts as actual communications rather than mysterious symbolic codes. Champollion's use of Coptic as a decipherment tool established the principle of using related languages to understand ancient scripts and influenced later archaeological and linguistic work throughout the world. His success demonstrated the importance of preserving indigenous languages and cultural traditions that might seem obsolete but can provide invaluable keys to understanding ancient civilizations, while the Coptic connection to ancient Egyptian proved that some aspects of Pharaonic culture had survived unbroken for thousands of years. 99. Castor oil hair growth. Ancient Egyptian physicians discovered that castor oil could effectively promote hair growth in patients suffering from alopecia and various scalp conditions, developing one of history's first documented hair loss treatments that modern science has confirmed to have genuine therapeutic properties for stimulating follicle activity and improving hair health. This discovery demonstrates the sophisticated observational skills and practical experimentation that characterized Egyptian medical practice. Castor oil, extracted from the seeds of the castor plant that grew naturally in Egypt, contains ricinoleic acid and other compounds that improve blood circulation to the scalp, reduce inflammation, and provide nutrients that support healthy hair growth and follicle function. Egyptian doctors learned to prepare and apply castor oil treatments through systematic observation of patient outcomes and refinement of application techniques. The treatment was particularly valued for addressing hair loss caused by skin conditions, infections, and nutritional deficiencies that were common in ancient populations, while Egyptian physicians also used castor oil to treat various other medical conditions, including digestive problems, skin disorders, and wound healing. The versatility of castor oil made it one of the most important medicinal substances in ancient Egyptian pharmacy. Egyptian hair growth treatments influenced beauty and medical practices throughout the ancient world, with Greek and Roman physicians adopting Egyptian techniques and preparations for treating hair loss and scalp conditions. The continued use of castor oil in modern cosmetic and medical applications validates the accuracy of ancient Egyptian observations and demonstrates how traditional medical knowledge can provide foundations for contemporary therapeutic approaches, while this ancient discovery remains relevant for people seeking natural alternatives to modern hair loss treatments. 100. Honey and cinnamon medicine. Ancient Egyptian physicians created sophisticated medicinal preparations, including gumballs made from honey, cinnamon, myrrh, and frankincense that were specifically designed to cure bad breath and improve oral health, representing some of humanity's earliest systematic approaches to dental hygiene and preventive oral care. These aromatic medicine balls combined pleasant taste with genuine therapeutic properties that addressed multiple aspects of oral health and overall well-being. The honey provided natural antibacterial properties that killed harmful mouth bacteria responsible for tooth decay, gum disease, and offensive odors, while cinnamon contributed additional antimicrobial effects and pleasant flavoring that made the medicine enjoyable to use. Myrrh and frankincense added anti-inflammatory properties that reduced gum swelling and promoted healing of oral tissues damaged by infection or injury. These medicinal gumballs were chewed slowly to release their therapeutic compounds throughout the mouth and provide long-lasting breath-freshening effects that could last for hours after use. The preparation method involved careful combination of ingredients in specific proportions to maximize both therapeutic effectiveness and palatability, creating medicines that patients actually wanted to use regularly. The development of breath-freshening medicines reflects Egyptian attention to personal hygiene, social interaction, and overall health maintenance that recognized oral health as important for both medical and social reasons. Egyptian oral care preparations influenced medical practice throughout the ancient world and established principles of preventive dentistry that remain relevant today. While modern research has confirmed the genuine therapeutic properties of these ancient ingredients, validating Egyptian medical knowledge and demonstrating the timeless effectiveness of natural approaches to oral health care. 101. Scan pyramids technology. Modern cosmic ray technology called muon tomography has revolutionized archaeological exploration by allowing scientists to peer inside ancient monuments without moving a single stone, creating detailed images of internal structures and hidden chambers through the detection of cosmic particles that constantly bombard Earth from outer space. This cutting-edge technology has transformed our ability to explore archaeological sites while preserving their integrity and historical value. Muons are subatomic particles created when cosmic rays collide with Earth's atmosphere, and these particles can penetrate dense materials like stone and metal while losing energy in predictable ways that reveal internal structures and density variations. By placing sensitive detectors around monuments like pyramids, scientists can map internal chambers, passages, and voids with remarkable precision without any physical intrusion. The Scan Pyramids project has used this revolutionary technology to discover previously unknown chambers within the Great Pyramid of Giza, including the mysterious void above the Grand Gallery that has remained hidden for over 4,500 years. These discoveries have opened new possibilities for understanding pyramid construction techniques, internal layouts, and original purposes without risking damage to these irreplaceable monuments. This non-invasive archaeological technique represents a perfect fusion of ancient history and modern physics, allowing 21st century science to unlock secrets from the distant past through methods that would seem like magic to ancient builders. The success of muon tomography in Egypt has inspired similar applications at archaeological sites worldwide, establishing new standards for respectful, non-destructive exploration that can reveal hidden history while preserving ancient monuments for future generations to study and appreciate. 102. DNA analysis potential. Scientists are now hopeful that they can extract viable DNA and conduct comprehensive genetic analysis from well-preserved mummies like Hekashep's, potentially unlocking unprecedented information about ancient Egyptian health conditions, family relationships, geographic origins, and genetic characteristics that could revolutionize our understanding of this ancient civilization. Advanced genetic analysis techniques developed for modern forensic and medical applications can now be applied to ancient remains with remarkable success. DNA extraction from ancient mummies requires extremely careful handling and specialized laboratory techniques that can work with degraded genetic material that has survived for thousands of years in challenging preservation conditions. Successful genetic analysis could reveal information about diseases that affected ancient Egyptians, their dietary habits, genetic relationships between different mummy specimens, and migration patterns that shaped Egyptian population genetics. The potential for genetic analysis of royal mummies could finally resolve long-standing questions about family relationships between pharaohs, succession patterns, and the genetic health of royal bloodlines that may have been affected by intermarriage and inherited conditions. DNA analysis could also provide insights into the geographic origins of different Egyptian populations and their connections to other ancient civilizations. This cutting-edge genetic research represents a new frontier in Egyptology that combines advanced laboratory science with traditional archaeological methods to extract maximum information from precious ancient remains. The genetic secrets locked within ancient Egyptian mummies could provide unprecedented insights into human health, migration, and social organization in the ancient world, while establishing new protocols for respectful scientific study of human remains that balances research potential with ethical considerations and cultural sensitivity. 103. Temperature scanning. Advanced infrared thermography and ultrasound technologies are revolutionizing archaeological exploration by enabling scientists to discover hidden chambers, passages, and structural features within ancient monuments through non-invasive temperature and sound wave analysis that reveals internal variations invisible to conventional examination methods. These sophisticated imaging techniques provide detailed information about ancient construction without requiring any physical access or potential damage to precious archaeological sites. Infrared thermography detects minute temperature differences within stone structures that can indicate hollow spaces, different materials, or construction joints that suggest hidden chambers or passages behind solid walls. These temperature variations, often invisible to human senses, can reveal architectural features that have remained hidden for thousands of years while providing crucial information about original construction techniques and building phases. Ultrasound technology uses high-frequency sound waves that penetrate stone and other dense materials, creating detailed images of internal structures based on how sound waves reflect off different materials and empty spaces. This technique can map the precise dimensions and locations of hidden chambers, while identifying construction materials and architectural features that aren't visible from exterior examination. The combination of these non-invasive technologies has already led to significant discoveries, including hidden chambers in pyramids, unknown passages in temples, and previously undetected structural features that provide new insights into ancient engineering and architectural practices. These imaging techniques represent the future of archaeological exploration, allowing scientists to unlock ancient secrets while preserving irreplaceable monuments for future generations and establishing new standards for respectful, scientifically rigorous investigation of cultural heritage sites worldwide. 104. Continuous discoveries. Despite being one of the world's most intensively studied archaeological regions for over 200 years, Egypt continues to yield extraordinary new discoveries annually, proving that this remarkable land still holds countless treasures and secrets beneath its golden sands waiting to revolutionize our understanding of ancient civilization. The steady stream of new finds demonstrates how much we still don't know about ancient Egyptian culture, technology, and daily life, keeping Egyptology vibrant and exciting. Recent discoveries include completely unknown royal tombs, vast underground complexes, previously undocumented historical periods, and artifacts that challenge existing theories about ancient Egyptian capabilities and international connections. Each new find often raises more questions than it answers, revealing the complexity and sophistication of this ancient civilization while highlighting gaps in our current knowledge. The continuous discovery rate reflects both the enormous scope of ancient Egyptian civilization and the limitations of past archaeological work that focus primarily on major monuments and royal sites, while leaving vast areas unexplored. Modern archaeological techniques and technologies are revealing sites and artifacts that previous generations of explorers missed or couldn't access with older methods and equipment. This ongoing archaeological productivity ensures that Egyptian history remains dynamic and evolving rather than fixed and settled, with new discoveries regularly rewriting textbooks and forcing scholars to revise their understanding of ancient Egyptian achievements, chronology, and cultural development. The promise of future discoveries maintains Egypt's position as one of the world's most important archaeological frontiers, where each excavation season brings the potential for revolutionary finds that could transform our understanding of human civilization and ancient achievement. 105. 3,000-year civilization. Ancient Egyptian civilization endured for approximately 3,000 years from around 3100 BC to 30 BC, representing one of the longest-lasting and most stable civilizations in human history that witnessed the rise and fall of countless other cultures while maintaining remarkable continuity in language, religion, art, and social organization. This extraordinary longevity demonstrates the adaptability and resilience of Egyptian culture and institutions that survived foreign invasions, climate changes, and political upheavals. During its three-millennium span, Egyptian civilization experienced periods of remarkable prosperity and international influence, alternating with times of political fragmentation and foreign domination. Yet it maintained essential characteristics that made it recognizably Egyptian throughout its entire history. The consistency of Egyptian art styles, religious beliefs, and cultural practices across thousands of years is unmatched by any other ancient civilization. To put this longevity in perspective, ancient Egyptian civilization lasted longer than the entire history of Christianity, longer than the time between the fall of Rome and the present day, and longer than recorded human history in most parts of the world. An ancient Egyptian from the pyramid-building era was separated from Cleopatra by more time than Cleopatra is separated from us today. This remarkable durability reflects the success of Egyptian political institutions, religious systems, and cultural values that provided stability and continuity through changing circumstances while allowing for adaptation and innovation when necessary. The 3,000-year span of Egyptian civilization stands as testimony to human capability for creating enduring societies and maintaining cultural traditions across countless generations, providing models for understanding how civilizations can achieve longevity through flexibility, adaptation, and commitment to core values that transcend individual lifetimes. 106. Grave robbing history. Most tomb robbing in ancient Egypt was actually committed by ancient Egyptians themselves rather than modern treasure hunters, with many pyramids and royal tombs being systematically looted within centuries of their construction by people who understood the burial customs and knew exactly where to find the most valuable grave goods. This sobering reality challenges romantic notions of intact tombs waiting for modern archaeologists to discover their untouched treasures. Ancient grave robbers were often organized professionals who possessed detailed knowledge of tomb construction, burial practices, and the locations of hidden chambers that contained the most valuable artifacts. Some robbers were former tomb builders or priests who had inside knowledge of security measures and burial layouts that enabled them to bypass protective features and locate treasure caches efficiently. The scale of ancient tomb robbing was enormous, with evidence suggesting that the Giza pyramids were completely stripped of their original contents within a few centuries of construction, leaving only the massive stone architecture that was too large and integrated to remove. Royal treasures worth fortunes in gold, jewelry, and precious objects were systematically extracted and sold in ancient markets. This ancient theft represents one of history's greatest losses of archaeological evidence and artistic treasures that could have provided invaluable insights into royal burial practices, ancient craftsmanship, and economic systems. The few intact tombs that survive to modern times, like Tutankhamun's, provide glimpses of what was lost in thousands of other burials that were emptied by ancient thieves, while the persistence of grave robbing throughout Egyptian history reflects both the enormous wealth buried in tombs and the economic incentives that motivated people to risk severe punishments for violating sacred spaces. 107. Tetracycline in ancient beer. Ancient Nubians who lived along the Nile in present-day Sudan consumed beer that contained natural antibiotics, specifically tetracycline, which has been found embedded in their bones in concentrations high enough to provide therapeutic benefits against bacterial infections and diseases. This remarkable discovery suggests that ancient brewing processes accidentally created one of history's first antibiotic medications through natural fermentation and grain storage techniques. The tetracycline found in Nubian bones came from drinking beer made from grains that had been contaminated with Streptomyces bacteria during storage, and these bacteria can naturally produce tetracycline as part of their normal metabolic processes. The ancient Nubians unknowingly consumed therapeutic doses of this antibiotic throughout their lifetimes, beginning in early childhood when children started drinking weak beer as a dietary staple. Modern analysis of Nubian skeletal remains shows tetracycline concentrations that would be considered medically significant in treating bacterial infections, suggesting that this accidental antibiotic consumption provided genuine health benefits that improved survival rates and reduced deaths from infectious diseases. The practice continued for generations, indicating that ancient brewing methods consistently produced tetracycline-containing beer through standardized grain storage and fermentation techniques. This discovery demonstrates how traditional food production methods sometimes accidentally created beneficial medical effects that ancient peoples may have recognized empirically without understanding the scientific mechanisms involved. The tetracycline-containing beer represents an early example of what modern medicine calls probiotics and functional foods that provide health benefits beyond basic nutrition, while showing how careful study of ancient remains can reveal sophisticated aspects of traditional medicine and nutrition that influenced human health and survival in the ancient world. 108. Medical papyrus survival. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating to 1600 BC, and Ebers Papyrus preserve detailed medical knowledge that extends back as early as 3000 BC, representing some of humanity's oldest preserved medical literature and providing unprecedented insights into ancient Egyptian healthcare, surgical techniques, and understanding of human anatomy that influenced medical practice throughout the ancient world. These remarkable documents survived for thousands of years and continue to provide valuable information about ancient medicine. The Edwin Smith Papyrus focuses specifically on surgical procedures and trauma treatment, containing detailed descriptions of 48 surgical cases, including injuries to the head, neck, arms, and torso, along with recommended treatments, diagnostic procedures, and prognosis assessments. The document reads like a modern medical textbook with systematic approaches to patient examination, wound care, and surgical intervention that demonstrate remarkable medical sophistication. The Ebers Papyrus represents a comprehensive medical encyclopedia containing over 800 remedies and treatments for various diseases and conditions, including precise prescriptions for medications, dosage instructions, and preparation methods that show systematic pharmaceutical knowledge. Both papyri contain medical information that predates the documents themselves by centuries, suggesting they preserve even older medical traditions and knowledge. These ancient medical texts influenced healthcare throughout the Mediterranean world and established many principles of clinical observation, patient care, and therapeutic intervention that remain relevant to modern medical practice. The survival of these papyri provides unique windows into ancient medical thinking and demonstrates the high level of medical knowledge possessed by Egyptian physicians who developed systematic approaches to healthcare that combine practical treatment with spiritual healing, creating comprehensive medical systems that addressed both physical and psychological aspects of illness and recovery. 109. Cauterisation technique. Ancient Egyptian physicians pioneered the medical technique of cauterization, known as firing bolt, which involved using heated metal instruments to treat inflammation, seal blood vessels during surgery, and promote healing after surgical procedures through controlled application of intense heat to damaged tissues. This sophisticated surgical technique required considerable skill and understanding of anatomy to apply therapeutic heat without causing additional injury or complications. Cauterization worked by destroying infected tissue, sealing bleeding vessels, and creating sterile wound surfaces that healed more effectively than untreated injuries, while the intense heat killed bacteria and other harmful microorganisms that could cause life-threatening infections in an era without antibiotics or antiseptic medications. Egyptian surgeons learned to control temperature and application time to achieve therapeutic benefits while minimizing tissue damage. The technique was used to treat various medical conditions, including infected wounds, chronic ulcers, hemorrhaging injuries, and inflammatory conditions that hadn't responded to other treatments, while ancient medical texts describe specific procedures and instruments used for different types of cauterization depending on the location and severity of the medical problem. Specialized metal tools were heated in fires until they reached optimal therapeutic temperatures. Egyptian cauterization techniques influenced surgical practice throughout the ancient world and established principles of thermal therapy that continue to be used in modern medicine through techniques like electrocautery and laser surgery. The ancient understanding of controlled heat application for medical purposes demonstrates sophisticated medical knowledge and surgical skills that enabled Egyptian physicians to perform complex procedures and achieve healing outcomes that wouldn't be possible without some form of tissue sterilization and blood vessel control during surgical intervention. 110. International medical reputation. Ancient Egyptian physicians achieved such extraordinary international recognition for their medical skills and knowledge that kings and queens from distant lands regularly sought Egyptian doctors to treat serious illnesses, establishing Egypt as the premier medical destination in the ancient world where the most advanced healthcare was available. This international medical tourism demonstrates the superior reputation Egyptian medicine had earned through successful treatment outcomes and sophisticated medical techniques. Foreign rulers from Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and other distant kingdoms specifically requested Egyptian physicians through diplomatic channels, often offering substantial payments and valuable gifts in exchange for medical consultation and treatment that couldn't be obtained elsewhere. These international medical missions enhanced Egypt's diplomatic relationships and economic prosperity while spreading Egyptian medical knowledge throughout the ancient world. The international demand for Egyptian medical expertise reflected the advanced state of Egyptian medical education, systematic clinical practices, and successful treatment methods that produced better patient outcomes than medical systems in other contemporary civilizations. Egyptian physicians were trained in specialized medical schools and had access to comprehensive medical libraries and accumulated clinical experience that gave them significant advantages over practitioners elsewhere. This medical reputation contributed to Egypt's soft power and cultural influence in the ancient world, with Egyptian medical techniques, pharmaceutical preparations, and surgical procedures being adopted by foreign courts and medical practitioners who recognized the superiority of Egyptian healthcare. The international recognition of Egyptian medicine established precedents for medical collaboration and knowledge exchange that influenced the development of healthcare systems throughout the Mediterranean world while enhancing Egypt's status as a center of learning and advanced civilization. 111. First medical schools. The first institutions dedicated to medical education, known as houses of life, were established in ancient Egypt during the First Dynasty and may represent humanity's earliest formal medical schools where systematic training in healthcare, anatomy, and therapeutic techniques was provided to future physicians and medical practitioners. These educational institutions combined practical medical training with religious instruction and philosophical study that created comprehensive healthcare providers. The Houses of Life served multiple educational functions, including training scribes, priests, and physicians while maintaining libraries of medical texts, religious documents, and administrative records that preserved accumulated knowledge for future generations. Medical students at these institutions learned anatomy through mummification practice, studied pharmaceutical preparations using plant and mineral ingredients, and gained clinical experience treating patients under supervision of experienced practitioners. The curriculum at ancient medical schools included instruction in diagnostic techniques, surgical procedures, pharmaceutical preparation, patient care, and the religious aspects of healing that integrated spiritual and practical approaches to healthcare. Students learned to read and write medical texts, perform physical examinations, and develop clinical reasoning skills that enabled them to diagnose diseases and select appropriate treatments. These early medical institutions established the principle of formal medical education that required systematic study and supervised practice before physicians could treat patients independently, creating professional standards and quality control that improved healthcare outcomes. The Egyptian model of medical education influenced the development of medical schools throughout the ancient world and established educational approaches that remain fundamental to medical training today, demonstrating how ancient educational innovations continue to shape modern professional development in healthcare and other technical fields. 112. Specialized medicine. Ancient Egyptian physicians developed remarkable medical specialization where individual doctors focused on specific diseases or particular body parts, creating a comprehensive healthcare system with specialists in ophthalmology, dentistry, gastroenterology, gynecology, and other medical fields that provided expert care for complex medical conditions requiring specialized knowledge and experience. This early medical specialization demonstrates the sophistication of Egyptian healthcare organization and recognition of how focused expertise improves patient outcomes. Medical specialization allowed Egyptian physicians to develop deep expertise in specific areas of medicine through concentrated study and clinical practice that enabled them to achieve better treatment results than generalist practitioners could provide for complex or challenging medical conditions. Specialists maintained detailed knowledge of specific anatomical systems, disease patterns, and therapeutic techniques that required years of focused training and experience to master completely. The Egyptian healthcare system included specialists such as proctologists, shepherds of the anus, ophthalmologists who treated eye diseases, dentists who addressed oral health problems, and gynecologists who specialized in women's reproductive health and childbirth assistance. Each specialty developed its own diagnostic techniques, treatment protocols, and professional standards that ensured consistent, high-quality care for patients with specialized medical needs. This medical specialization system influenced healthcare organization throughout the ancient world and established principles of expert medical practice that remain fundamental to modern medicine, where specialization continues to improve patient care through focused expertise and advanced training. The ancient Egyptian model demonstrates how early civilizations could develop sophisticated professional healthcare systems that recognize the complexity of human medicine and the benefits of allowing practitioners to develop specialized skills that improve treatment outcomes and establish medicine as a respected professional field requiring extensive education and clinical experience.